A girl who's always cold moved into our dorm and won't let us turn on the AC in summer. During a scorching 42-degree heat wave, she smashed the air conditioner to pieces. The rest of us were practically roasted alive in the middle of the night, yet she got a guaranteed spot in a top-tier grad school for helping the university cover it up. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the first day of school registration, in the sweltering 35-degree heat. My roommate showed up late wearing long sleeves and pants. "Hi everyone, I'm Prudence. I'm not in the best health. The doctor says I have a cold constitution. I'd really appreciate your kindness and support." My eyes snapped open, and the glaring sunlight streamed through the car window onto my face. The bus announcement echoed in my ears. "Next stop, University of Technology. Please exit through the rear doors." I looked down at the admission letter in my hands, my fingertips trembling slightly. The gilded university name shimmered under the sunlight, exactly as I remembered. I was back on the first day of my freshman year. Memories from my past life came flooding back. The scorching 42-degree heat, the smashed air conditioner, the dorm room as stuffy as a steamer, and the agonizing images of my roommates dying from heatstroke in the middle of the night. And Prudence, the roommate who always claimed she ran cold, got a guaranteed spot at a top-tier university for helping the school cover up the truth about the students' deaths. "Hey, are you getting off or not?" The driver's impatient voice snapped me out of my memories. Off. I grabbed my luggage and bounded out of the vehicle in a few quick strides, my heart pounding like a drum. The campus was bustling with crowds of freshmen dragging suitcases and parents accompanying them. In the sweltering 35-degree heat, most people wore shorts and t-shirts, their backs soaked with sweat. I took a deep breath and headed toward the women's dormitory, following the route I remembered. This time, I'm determined to change my fate, not just for myself, but for my 3 innocent roommates too. The dorm is a quad, and when I arrived, the other 2 roommates were already there. A lively girl with short hair was making her bed. She greeted me warmly when I walked in. "Hi, I'm Emery's. From the computer science department. I was reborn. I'm Ruth," said another girl, looking up from her book with glasses on. "From the biology department. I'm Clove. From the finance department." I smiled in response, but my gaze involuntarily drifted toward Prudence's empty bed. In my previous life, it was in this very dorm room that the 4 of us endured a brief and painful start to our college years. Prudence used sensitivity to cold as an excuse to forbid us from turning on the AC from the very first day of school, even during the hottest weather. The 3 of us initially compromised out of goodwill, never imagining it was just the beginning of a nightmare. "I heard this summer is especially hot," Emery said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Good thing the dorm has air conditioning." Just as I was about to respond, the dorm room door creaked open gently. A girl in a long-sleeved shirt and trousers wheeled her suitcase inside, a frail-looking smile on her pale face. "Hi everyone. I'm Prudence. I've been having some health issues. The doctor says I have poor circulation and get cold easily. I'd really appreciate your support." My fingers unconsciously clenched the bedsheet. It was that innocent expression and that fragile, pitiful tone that won our sympathy, only to end up getting us killed. "Poor circulation?" Emery's asked curiously. "Does that mean you can't use air conditioning?" Prudence nodded gently, a familiar glint of calculation flashing in her eyes. "The doctor says I'm particularly sensitive to cold and can't stand even a slight breeze, so, could everyone please be understanding and try not to turn on the AC? I can buy small fans for everyone." In my previous life, this was where I let my guard down, thinking about wanting to get along with my new roommates, combined with Prudence's pitiful appearance. I was the first to nod in agreement, but this time, no, I said firmly. The dorm room fell silent instantly. Clearly caught off guard by the rejection, Prudence froze for a moment before her eyes began to well up. "But my body really, it's 35 degrees right now," I said calmly, looking her straight in the eye. "Normal people would get heat stroke without air conditioning. If you're really that sensitive to the cold, you should apply for a single dorm or take a leave of absence to recover, not expect 3 healthy people to accommodate you." Emery's and Ruth stared at me in surprise, clearly not expecting me to be so direct. Prudence's eyes welled up with tears. "How could you say that? I'm just stating the facts." I cut her off. "The dorm is a shared space, and we all need to be considerate. You can put on more layers, but we can't exactly take off any more clothes. We'll turn on the AC, but we can set it to a slightly higher temperature so everyone's comfortable." Prudence's expression shifted, her delicate demeanor twisted for a moment before she quickly regained that pitiable look. "Well, all right then, but can we keep it no lower than 28 degrees, 26 degrees? I stood my ground. "That's the most comfortable temperature for the human body. You can always use an extra blanket or wear warmer pajamas." Prudence bit her lip and finally nodded. But I knew she wasn't going to let this go. In her previous life, she resorted to all sorts of tricks to force our hand, faking fainting spells, coughing in the middle of the night, even secretly turning off the air conditioning. "This time, I have to prepare in advance. I'm going to grab some drinks. Anyone want anything?" I stood up and asked, mainly to give myself a moment to cool off. "I'll take a cola," Emery's chimed in right away. "Just mineral water, thanks." Ruth adjusted her glasses. Prudence shook her head and whispered, "I can't have anything cold." I nodded and left the dorm, letting out a deep sigh of relief the moment I stepped outside. The first step was a success. At least I didn't give in right away like I did in my past life, but I knew the real battle had only just begun. In the supermarket, I browsed for drinks while mulling over my strategy. In our past life, the three of us were manipulated by Prudence mainly because she excelled at exploiting people's kindness and aversion to conflict, but this time, I must unite with my other two roommates and not let Prudence drive a wedge between us. I returned to the dorm with drinks and some snacks, sensing a subtle shift in the atmosphere. Prudence was sitting on Emery's bed, and the two seemed to be whispering about something. They immediately stopped talking when they saw me come in. "Your cola." I handed the drink to Emery's, keenly noticing a change in the way she looked at me. "Thank you." Emery's took the drink, hesitating for a moment. "Clove, Prudence just mentioned she was hospitalized several times in high school due to poor circulation." I scoffed inwardly. Of course she was playing the sympathy card. "Really? That must have been tough." I feigned concern and asked, "Did the doctor specify what kind of constitution issue it was? Any particular diagnosis?" Clearly caught off guard by my follow-up, Prudence stammered, "Well, it's what traditional Chinese medicine calls yang deficiency." "Oh, which hospital did you go to? And which doctor did you see? What medication were you prescribed?" I pressed further. "My aunt works at the Provincial Hospital of Traditional Chinese Medicine. Maybe she could refer you to a better specialist." Prudence's expression froze. No need. It was just a small local hospital back in my hometown." I nodded and didn't press further, but I'd already made up my mind. In our past life, we never once doubted the authenticity of her cold constitution. But now it's clear, the story is full of holes. In the evening, we turned on the air conditioner and set it to 26 degrees. Prudence was wearing thick pajamas, wrapped in a blanket, and occasionally let out a few coughs. Emery seemed a bit uneasy, glancing in Prudence's direction several times. I quietly took out my phone and noted in the memo, "Day 1, AC set to 26 degrees Celsius. Prudence in thick pajamas plus blanket, complained of feeling cold but showed no actual symptoms." This is the first link in the chain of evidence I'm gathering. In the dead of night, I was jolted awake by a faint noise. By the moonlight, I saw Prudence sneak out of bed and tiptoe toward the AC control panel. Just like in our past life, she was trying to turn off the air conditioner while we were asleep. "What are you doing?" I suddenly spoke up. Prudence flinched, nearly letting out a yelp. I'm feeling a bit chilly." "So you'd turn off the AC and let the three of us swelter?" I switched on the bedside lamp, my voice low but clear. "You could grab an extra blanket, but you don't get to unilaterally decide to shut off the air conditioning." Emery's and Ruth stirred awake too, blinking sleepily at us. "What's going on?" Emery's asked. I said bluntly, "Prudence wants to turn off the AC. I believe dorm rules should be decided through group discussion, not by any one person's unilateral decision." Tears immediately welled up in Prudence's eyes. "I'm really freezing." "None of you care about how I feel." "Of course we care about you," Ruth interjected suddenly, adjusting her glasses, "but care goes both ways. It's 32 degrees Celsius outside and 26 inside. If you're still feeling cold, you might need to see a doctor. That's beyond normal sensitivity to cold." I shot Ruth a surprised glance, never expecting her to take my side. "It seems Prudence's act doesn't work on everyone." I understand," Prudence sobbed as she retreated to her bed. Though I knew it was only a temporary surrender, the next morning, I found Prudence's bed neatly made, but she was nowhere to be found in the dorm. Her thick quilt was neatly folded into a perfect square. Almost without thinking, I reached out and touched it. It was cold and dry, completely devoid of any warmth that would suggest someone had slept there. A terrifying thought crossed my mind. She might not actually sleep in the dorm at all. I quietly took a photo of her bed and then checked her closet. It was filled with short-sleeved tops and summer dresses, with only a few long-sleeved items that looked brand new. "What are you looking at?" Emery suddenly appeared behind me. "Nothing," I said casually as I closed the cabinet door. "Where did Prudence go?" "She said she went for a morning workout." Emery's pursed his lips. "Claims it helps with blood circulation and improves cold sensitivity. A morning workout." In this scorching heat over 30 degrees, my suspicions grew even stronger. Over the next few days, I began secretly observing Prudence's every move. During the day in the dorm, she always bundles up tightly as if she's freezing, but I happened to see her buying a large iced milk tea at the cafeteria. What's most suspicious is that I noticed she sneaks out of the dorm for a few hours every night after we've fallen asleep. One day, I pretended to be asleep and followed her out of the dorm building, only to see her head straight to the library, the campus building with the strongest air conditioning. I took photos on my phone of her entering the library, and of her inside, taking off her coat and studying in just a short-sleeved shirt. So this is what she calls poor circulation. Back in the dorm, I started organizing all the evidence I'd collected, photos, videos, temperature logs, I decided to first win over Emery's and Ruth. They had a right to know the truth. Don't you think there's something odd about Prudence's poor circulation? I cautiously asked one day when she was absent. Emery's hesitated. She does always complain about being cold, but I've noticed a few inconsistencies, I said, pulling out my phone to show them the evidence I'd gathered, sneaking off to the library at night for the AC, buying ice drinks in the cafeteria, wearing short sleeves in the dorm when we're not around. Ruth adjusted her glasses, scrutinizing the photos. Are you saying she's putting on an act? I don't think her cold sensitivity is that serious. She might even be faking it, I said bluntly. She's just using it as an excuse to control the dorm environment. Emery's looked shocked. Why would anyone do that? A need for control, or maybe she enjoys getting special treatment. I shook my head. Whatever the reason, we can't let her keep manipulating us. The three of us reached an agreement. The air conditioner would stay on. Set at 26 degrees, if Prudence felt cold, she could put on more clothes, but she couldn't unilaterally decide to turn it off. That evening, Prudence returned to the dorm and noticed the air conditioner was on. Her expression instantly darkened. Didn't we agree not to turn on the AC? We've discussed this, I said calmly. 26 degrees is a reasonable temperature. You have the right to feel cold. But we have the right to feel warm. Shared spaces require compromise. Prudence's face fell, her feigned fragility vanishing completely. Are the three of you ganging up on me? It's not about ganging up, it's about fairness, Ruth said. If you have a genuine medical need, provide a doctor's note. We can request special arrangements from the university. A flicker of panic flashed in Prudence's eyes, quickly replaced by fury. Fine, just you wait and see, she snapped. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her, leaving the dormitory in stunned silence. The way she looked just now, it was terrifying. Emery's whispered, nothing like the gentle Prudence we know. I nodded, but felt no sense of relief. In the following days, Prudence began her retaliation. She accidentally spilled water on my bed, posted lengthy accusations in the dorm group chat claiming we bullied a sick classmate, and even faked a fainting spell to attract the dorm supervisor's attention. But this time, we refused to back down. I presented the collected evidence proving the dorm temperature was entirely within reasonable limits. Ruth found the school's official policy on air conditioner usage. Emery's recorded Prudence's private threats against us. The conflict reached its peak on Friday night. The temperature hit a record high that day, making the dorm unbearably stuffy. We turned on the AC, but Prudence unplugged it as soon as she returned. I can't take this anymore, she screamed. You selfish jerks, you're the selfish one. I calmly plugged the power back in. It's 40 degrees outside. Are you trying to kill us with heat? You can get out. This is my dorm. Prudence shrieked hysterically. No, this is a dorm assigned to 4 people by the school, Ruth corrected. You don't have special privileges. Prudence's face twisted into a vicious scowl as she suddenly grabbed the water cup from the desk and hurled it at the air conditioner. The scene overlapped with my past life memories. This was where she first spiraled out of control in my previous life, ultimately leading to tragedy. But this time, I was prepared. I grabbed her wrist firmly and said, damaging school property is a violation of the rules, and we have the right to report it to the school. Prudence broke free from my grip and glared at each of us with pure malice, snarling, you'll regret this. With that, she stormed out of the dormitory. The loud slam of the door echoed through the hallway as Prudence left, leaving the three of us staring at each other in stunned silence. The hum of the air conditioner starting up again felt unusually jarring at that moment. Do you think she'll tell on us? Emery's bit her lower lip, her fingers twisting together nervously. I picked up my phone and pulled up the video I'd just recorded. Prudence's hysterical expression and her attempt to smash the air conditioner were clearly visible. We have evidence. Ruth adjusted her glasses, the lenses glinting coldly. According to Article 12 of the Student Dormitory Regulations, intentionally damaging public property is considered a serious violation. She should be grateful you didn't hand this video directly to the dorm supervisor. I shook my head. Not yet. I needed more evidence, something absolutely damning. Emery's leaned in to look at the other photos on my phone. Did you take all these? Her finger traced across the screen. Prudence buying iced milk tea at the cafeteria, taking off her jacket in the library to reveal just a short-sleeved shirt, her sweat-drenched back after morning workouts. Oh my God, Emery's gasped. Has she been deceiving us all along? It's obvious, Ruth said with chilling calmness. In psychology, it's called Munchausen syndrome, a psychological disorder where someone fakes illness to gain attention and special treatment. I felt secretly relieved to have Ruth as a rational ally this time. Last time, we were just too naive, and that's how Prudence took advantage of us. Tomorrow we'll go report the situation to our advisor, I said, and request a dorm change. Emery's nodded, but worry still lingered in his eyes. What if the advisor doesn't believe us? I curled the corner of my mouth. Then we'll show her the evidence. That night, I slept fitfully, half awake and half asleep, constantly feeling as if someone was standing by my bedside. At 3:17 a.m., the dormitory door creaked open as Prudence tiptoed back in. Squinting, I watched her hesitate in front of the AC for a few seconds before giving up. She just shot each of us a dirty look and climbed into bed. The next morning, I was the first to wake up and quietly checked the AC. It was perfectly fine. Looks like Prudence hasn't completely lost her mind. I checked the schedule. Professor Claire, our advisor, will be in her office at room 307 of the administration building at 10 a.m. I said to Emery's and Ruth over breakfast, let's go see her right after our first class. They both nodded in agreement. Prudence didn't return until we were about to leave, looking suspiciously pale with heavy dark circles under her eyes. We're going to see the advisor, I said, looking her straight in the eye. To request a dorm transfer. Prudence's expression froze instantly. Are you trying to kick me out? No. The three of us requested a transfer, I corrected. After all, you were the one who couldn't adjust to this dorm environment first. Her lips trembled, and a flicker of that familiar calculation flashed in her eyes. You can't do this. My health isn't good, and moving dorms would be too stressful. Then let's go see the counselor together, I said firmly, unmoved. We'll sort this out face to face. Prudence's expression shifted repeatedly before she finally gritted her teeth and said, fine, I'll go with you. On the way to the administration building, Prudence kept her head down, trailing behind like a scolded child. Emery's glanced back at her several times with a complicated look in his eyes. I know exactly what she's thinking. Anyone would soften at the sight of Prudence looking like this. But this time, I won't be fooled by appearances again. I gently knocked on the door of office 307 in the administration building. Come in, a gentle woman's voice replied. Our advisor, Ms. Claire, a woman in her early 30s with a sharp short haircut, looked slightly surprised to see the four of us walk in together. What brings you here? She asked. Ms. Claire, we'd like to request a room change. I got straight to the point, because we can't agree on how to use the air conditioning. Ms. Claire frowned. Just because of the air conditioning? Prudence says she's sensitive to the cold and insists we don't turn on the AC at all. Ruth adjusted her glasses. Her tone is calm as if she were reciting lab data, but it's the peak of summer heat. Indoor temperatures often exceed 35 degrees Celsius, which is already disrupting our studies and sleep. Prudence's eyes welled up instantly. Ms. Claire, I really do have a medically diagnosed cold-sensitive constitution. I can't stand even a slight draft. Do you have a doctor's note? Asked Ms. Claire. Prudence hesitated and stammered. It was an herbalist back in my hometown who said that. There's no written proof. I have some evidence here, I said, pulling out my phone and pulling up the photos and videos I had prepared. This is a photo of Prudence buying an ice drink in the cafeteria, and here she is taking off her jacket while studying in the library. If she were truly as sensitive to the cold as she claims, these actions wouldn't make any sense. Ms. Claire examined the evidence carefully, her brow furrowing more and more deeply. Prudence's face turned deathly pale. These photos are fake. They photoshopped them to frame me on purpose. The video is fake too. I pulled up the footage from last night where she tried to smash the air conditioner. Prudence's vicious expression and piercing shriek in the video instantly silenced the entire office. Ms. Claire's expression turned stern. Prudence, what is the meaning of this? They're all ganging up on me. Prudence suddenly burst into hysterical sobs. Just because I'm sick, just because I'm different from everyone else. Her cries drew the attention of a teacher from the neighboring office, who peered over to see what was happening. Ms. Claire sighed and said, everyone, calm down. Prudence, if you do have a health condition, the school can offer support, but you'll need to provide a formal medical certificate from a licensed hospital. I'll get one, Prudence replied between sobs. As for you three, Ms. Claire turned to us. Dorm reassignments take time, and there are no available beds at the moment. I suggest you try to be considerate of each other and compromise on the air conditioning temperature. I was prepared. Ms. Claire, we suggest setting the dorm AC to 26 degrees. It's the most comfortable temperature for the human body and falls within the school's recommended usage guidelines. If Prudence feels cold, she can always wear extra layers or use her bed curtain. Ms. Claire nodded. That sounds reasonable. Prudence, what do you think? Prudence kept her head down, her long hair covering her face, but I could see her clenched fists, her nails digging into her palms. Okay, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Let's leave it at that for now, Ms. Claire said with a sigh of relief. Feel free to come find me if you have any more questions. Stepping out of the office, Prudence suddenly quickened her pace, leaving us behind. Emery's wanted to go after her, but I held her back, let her cool off. Are we being too harsh? Emery's whispered. Ruth shook her head. We're just protecting our legal rights. Back in the dorm, Prudence was gone. The air conditioner remote sat on my desk with a note beside it. You win. Those three simple words sent a chill down my spine. This wasn't surrender, it was a declaration of war. In the following days, Prudence was unusually quiet. She no longer stopped us from turning on the air conditioner, no longer coughed, no longer sneaked out of bed at night, and no longer gave us that insincere smile. She started coming and going frequently with a calm and inscrutable expression. As if she was plotting something, Emery's asked me privately. Do you think she might be up to something else? She won't let this go, I replied with a frown, though my gaze was fixed on the air conditioner remote. A new label had been stuck on it, max 26 degrees Celsius, shared rule, don't touch. I needed to draw a line, both as proof and a defense in the silent battle. Sure enough, by the weekend, rumors began to circulate. Advisor Claire posted a notice in the group chat. We have recently received reports of bullying incidents in the dormitory. The school will investigate, and we ask the students involved to cooperate, she reported us, Ruth said with a cold laugh. She actually had the nerve. Emery's immediately panicked. What should we do? Don't worry, I patted her shoulder. If she wants to muddy the waters, we'll just pour it all out. On Monday morning, we received a meeting notice from the dean's office. The three of us headed to the office together, and sure enough, when we opened the door, Prudence was sitting inside. Having changed into that pity-me white shirt she always wears, her hair was perfectly styled, her expression pitiful, her eyes were red-rimmed, and she even had a band-aid near the corner of her eye. How did you hurt your face? Emery's muttered under his breath. Staged it yourself, I said flatly. Ms. Doris from the Student Affairs office sat behind her desk with a stern expression. We received an anonymous report alleging that you three students conspired to ostracize another dorm member by repeatedly turning down the air conditioning intentionally and using verbal attacks and intimidation to force her to move out. Prudence lowered her head at just the right moment, sobbing, I'm truly at my wit's end. They mock and ridicule me every single day, even recording videos of me and posting them in the group chat. I can't even sleep without feeling on edge. Do you have any concrete evidence? I asked calmly. Prudence hesitated, stammering. There are many of them posting in the dorm group chat. Their tone is absolutely vicious. I request that the director check the dorm group chat records. The three of us have never made any insulting remarks, Ruth asserted firmly, refusing to back down. I handed over a printed document. This is a documented record of Prudence purchasing iced drinks at the cafeteria and spending extended periods in air-conditioned library spaces, complete with timestamps and locations. After repeatedly claiming to suffer from cold sensitivity, all three of us agree that she exploited fabricated health issues to secure special treatment, while we ended up suffering psychological pressure as a result. Director Doris's expression darkened as she read through the materials. The document is detailed, rigorous, and devoid of emotion, yet it serves as a powerful rebuttal. Emery's gritted his teeth and spoke up. Director, if she's genuinely unwell, she could request a single room or provide a medical certificate from her family, but we're healthy individuals. Should we all sacrifice our quality of life for one person? Prudence's face gradually paled. Miss Prudence, could you provide a medical certificate? Director Doris finally spoke, her voice tinged with coldness. She remained silent for a long moment before finally murmuring, I'll make it up as soon as possible. Until you do, you have no right to demand the dormitory shut off the air conditioning. Director Doris stated firmly, if any party unilaterally adjusts the equipment again, the school will treat it as a disciplinary violation. The three of us stood up, thanked her, and left the office. Prudence remained seated there, motionless, like a statue that had lost its halo, for the next month. The dormitory appeared to return to a state of calm on the surface. Prudence seemed like a different person, keeping regular hours, speaking little, and no longer trying to control anyone. Only occasionally would she watch us quietly from a corner, her gaze cold and unsettling. But I knew deep down that it wasn't over yet. She was just waiting for the right moment. I never let my guard down. One night, her phone screen suddenly lit up. I casually glanced over and saw it was a conversation with some school reporter. Once I hand over the evidence, this matter will blow up. My heart sank. The next day, I promptly scheduled a meeting with Professor Claire. She might be preparing to spread false information to external media outlets. After a moment of contemplation, Ms. Claire said, the school is preparing a dormitory overhaul, which includes psychological screening. Your dorm will be a key focus during the interviews. A sense of relief washed over me. What was meant to happen would eventually come. 1 month into the semester, the college organized a special lecture on dormitory atmosphere building, along with anonymous psychological assessments and one-on-one interviews. Prudence appeared remarkably composed and emotionally detached during the interview, yet what ultimately revealed her true nature wasn't an emotional outburst, but an offhand remark. I think people should give me special treatment because I'm exceptional. This statement was documented in the counselor's interview records. Based on the evidence we previously submitted, the school initiated a further investigation and notified Prudence's parents to attend a meeting at the school. The final conclusion is that Prudence exhibited behaviors including exaggerating her symptoms, manipulating her peers, and escalating conflicts within the dormitory. While she does not suffer from a severe psychological disorder, She is deemed unsuitable for continued group living arrangements. She was relocated from her original dorm and assigned to a single room, with a mandate to undergo psychological counseling for 1 semester. On the day she left, she stood at the dormitory entrance with a venomous glare but remained silent. I knew that would be the last time she would ever appear in our lives playing the role of the victim. The three of us finally reclaimed our lives, free, refreshing, and free from manipulation. Emery's happily ate watermelon under the air conditioner and said with a laugh, "Clove, you're just like a detective." Ruth adjusted her glasses and said, "No, she's more like a survivor who always plans ahead." I took a deep breath and flashed a triumphant smile. The whole ordeal with the cold-intolerant sister has finally come to an end, and the three of us can finally start enjoying our college life, stepping out of the dorm. The October sun was warm but not scorching, and the campus was bustling with energetic students. "Come on, let's go for a stroll." Emery's linked arms with me. "After a month of scheming and battling wits, we haven't had a proper chance to hang out together." "Wait." Ruth smiled mysteriously and pulled a small box from her bag. "To celebrate the start of our new life, I brought some homemade ice cream from home." The three of us sat on the lawn, sharing a sweet ice cream. A gentle breeze blew by, carrying the fragrance of newly bloomed osmanthus. "To new beginnings," I said, raising my ice cream cup. "To the truth," Ruth said, pushing up her glasses. "To friendship," Emery said with a sweet smile. The glasses clinked with a crisp, clear sound. In that moment, I knew I had completely turned my fate around. Not only had I averted a recurring tragedy, but I had also gained genuine friendship and a brand new life. In the distance, the school bell rang from the academic building, signaling the start of class. We exchanged a smile and walked side by side toward the future. Story 2. As the Phoenix clan's most cherished princess, I was sent away to recuperate due to my frail health. In my absence, the Queen Mother adopted a foster daughter who usurped my identity. On the day of the Phoenix princess's coming-of-age ceremony, dignitaries from across the realms gathered in celebration, with the Dragon Prince publicly proposing marriage to the royal heir. Clutching a phoenix plume, the impostor Corvina gracefully held Prince Orion's arm and declared, "As the sole princess of the Phoenix clan, I shall honor the sacred union between our two noble houses." The entire assembly erupted in congratulations for the seemingly perfect match. I kicked open the banquet hall doors with a thunderous crash, the gust from my palm strike whipping across her face. Such insolence! What bastard spawn dares impersonate me? Corvina went flying several meters from the blow, her hairpiece knocked askew in utter disarray. Still unsatisfied, I delivered 2 more resounding slaps across her face. The onlookers stood aghast, staring at me in utter disbelief. My spirit companion Snow, who'd been playfully wrestling with the fairy, immediately lunged toward the injured Corvina. I magically lifted it midair and reprimanded in an icy tone. "Wretched beast, my cultivation kept me occupied, and in my absence of discipline, have you forgotten who your master is?" Snow is a once-in-a-millennium spirit fox, rescued by me as a cub during a blizzard on the mountain peaks. Now in its true form, its silver fur shimmered as 9 tails swayed behind it. Just as everyone expected Snow to avenge Corvina by attacking me, it instead lowered its head and prostrated at my feet, its 9 fluffy tails brushing against my hand in submission. Witnessing this scene, the onlookers grew wary of my status. Not a soul dared to help Corvina to her feet, tears welling in her eyes. Corvina covered her face and shakily rose, clutching Orion's arm as she glared at me with humiliated fury. "Aurelia, you're nothing but a stray my mother took pity on. Out of kindness, we treated you like family, yet you dare impersonate me in her absence. You even bewitched my spirit beast into serving you. Today's my coming-of-age ceremony. Spare me your disgrace. Get out." The moment these words were spoken, the entire hall erupted in uproar. Her dear friend Princess Sylvia of the Clam clan flushed crimson with rage, charging forward to hurl insults at me. "You ungrateful bastard, how dare you cause a scene at the Phoenix princess's coming-of-age ceremony?" Princess Zinnia of the Koi clan also stepped forward, glaring at me with folded arms and visible fury. "Indeed, Our Lady Corvina isn't just the Phoenix clan's sole imperial princess, she's also the Dragon Crown Prince's consort. How dare a motherless bastard like you presume to slander her?" I sneered coldly, channeling spiritual energy through my raised hand. Twin palm strikes whipped across Zinnia and Sylvia's faces, their cheeks immediately swelled into grotesque puffiness. "You bastard, how dare you hit me? I'm the first princess of the Koi clan. How dare a lowlife like you strike me? When I report this to my father, he'll have you torn limb from limb." I cast a disdainful glance at these 2 troublemakers. Amir Clam clan and Koi clan dared to challenge me. When my father followed the Celestial Emperor to battle the demon tribe 10,000 years ago, your parents hadn't even been born yet, were it not for our Phoenix clan's policy against discriminating lower-ranked species. Those lowborn wouldn't even qualify to attend the Imperial Princess's coming-of-age ceremony. You Sylvia gathered spiritual energy in her palm, poised to strike me down. Baring her fangs, Snow coiled her foxtail around the girl and hurled her into the air. Sylvia's magic was disrupted, sending her crashing to the ground as she coughed up blood. "How dare you!" Corvina's neck flushed crimson with rage, her dagger-like glare practically carving into me as she pointed and spat venomous words. "You bastard. Don't think Mother's favor gives you license to run wild and ruin my coming-of-age ceremony. When Mother arrives, I'll have her skin you alive." I arched an eyebrow. Zinnia stepped forward to help Sylvia up, glaring at the surrounding guards with undisguised hatred as she spat. "What are you gaping at? Throw this bastard out immediately. How dare you let this bastard disrupt your Phoenix Princess's coming-of-age ceremony? When the Phoenix Queen arrives, you'll regret crossing me." The guards exchanged uneasy glances before advancing toward me. My icy gaze swept across the guards as I snapped. "Lay one finger on me and you die. I am the sole heir of the Phoenix clan, the Emperor's only daughter. Anyone seeking death today, step forward and try me." Suddenly, a fierce palm strike came at me with such force that I was sent stumbling backwards several steps before I could react. Orion, the Dragon Prince, darkened with rage as venom dripped from his voice. "Today marks my betrothal to Corvina. I won't tolerate a bastard like you ruining this sacred occasion. So it's you, Orion. Remember how that black flood dragon at the abyss beyond Danshua Mountain thrashed you like a whipped cur? Had I not intervened, he'd have carved your horns into chew toys." A flicker of shock crossed Orion's eyes. The crown prince of dragonkind, bested by a mere black serpent. I'd just voiced his most humiliating defeat, blinded by rage. Orion instantly channeled his magic to strike me down. I met his assault without fear, overpowered at every turn. He collapsed before 3 exchanges were done. My boot came down on Orion's outstretched hand. "I truly regret saving an ungrateful wretch like you who dares raise a hand against your benefactor. Had your cowardly dragon clan not fled the divine demon war and incurred the god's wrath, barring golden dragon births for millennia, do you think a second-rate purple WIRM like you would ever become crown prince?" Orion choked on his own blood in rage, his chest heaving violently. You've gone completely mad." Corvina rushed over anxiously to help Orion up, glaring at me with gritted teeth. "I've already sent for the Queen Mother. Just wait till she gets here to skin you alive." I smiled faintly. "Splendid. I'd love to see whether Her Majesty would actually skin me when she arrives. As for you, you imposter bitch who stole my identity, you'd better start thinking how to beg me properly if you want to walk out of here alive." I swaggered over and plopped myself onto the throne at the head of the hall. Corvina glared at me defiantly but didn't dare to speak. I raised my hand and slapped her across the face twice more. "You filthy wretch. How dare you touch what's mine?" Corvina collapsed to the ground from the blows, her cheeks burning crimson. "Corvina, are you all right?" Orion rushed forward with concern to help Corvina up, then turned to glare at me as if wanting to say something, but remembering how I'd knocked him down earlier, he just let out a heavy snort instead. With a flick of my right hand, the phoenix feather in Corvina's grasp flew straight into my palm, the crimson phoenix feather, shimmering with golden light, embedded itself between my brows and transformed into a divine mark. Corvina turned pale, glaring at me with clenched teeth. With amusement, I savored the expressions of terror and shock below. Seizing a moment of boredom, I magnanimously explained, "Since childhood, I've been frail, confined to Danshua Mountain absorbing the world's essence. For millennia I've never ventured out, so your ignorance of me is understandable. Today, I shall spare all who refrained from offending me." A millennium of solitude in the Phoenix Mountains, my father followed the Divine Lord to purge the remnants of the demonic tribes, leaving me to grow up alone, too. Yet even the Queen Mother who remained by my side never once visited me. I always believed the Queen Mother was too occupied with governing the Phoenix clan to spare time for me. Had I not overheard those junior immortals gathering herbs at Danshua Mountain, I'd never have known the Phoenix clan suddenly had a pampered little princess raised by my mother. For millennia, I couldn't be by Mother's side. I understand her adopting a daughter to ease her loneliness, but if she lets this impostor steal my birthright without question, she leaves me no choice but to sever ties. Moments later, the Phoenix Queen stormed in, her face dark with rage. "Let me see which blind fool dares impersonate my child." I sprang up eagerly, but before I could cry "Mother," a stinging slap struck my cheek. I raised my head and locked eyes with her. I caught the fleeting panic and shock that flashed across her face. "Mother, you're finally here. Your daughter was nearly bullied to death by this wretched creature." Corvina threw herself into the Queen Mother's arms, sobbing coquettishly. The Phoenix Queen cradled Foamshoe tenderly, saying with concern, "You're my only true daughter. Haven't I come precisely to stand up for you?" I stood frozen, watching them play out their tender mother-daughter scene before me. A sudden wetness touched my cheek. When I raised my hand, I realized I was crying. So it was true. The Queen Mother never loved me. After comforting Corvina, the Phoenix Queen turned toward me with venom in her eyes. "Aurelia, you're nothing but a wild bastard with no upbringing. How dare you cause trouble at my coming-of-age ceremony as the Phoenix clan's imperial princess? Have you lost your mind?" The Phoenix Queen's words They undeniably confirmed Corvina's true status as the Phoenix clan's imperial princess, while I was merely an ungrateful wretch, a bastard child foolishly trying to usurp her identity. I wiped away my tears and let out a derisive laugh. Mother Queen, do you remember your promise to Father Emperor to care for me? How do you think he'd react if he knew you allowed impostors to steal my birthright before his departure? Father Emperor repeatedly entreated you to protect me, the Phoenix clan's future hope. His final words still echo in these halls. The Phoenix Queen's face stiffened with forced composure, but only I detected the panic trembling beneath her regal facade. Silence. How dare you call me mother? Raising you among the Phoenix clan was more mercy than you deserved. I let out a scornful laugh. Had I known you'd grow into such an ungrateful wretch, I should have strangled you the day I found you. The Koi princess and Clam princess immediately stepped forward to lodge complaints. Your Majesty, this bastard child has been impersonating the imperial princess, flaunting false authority, and even wounded the dragon prince in your absence. Indeed, Your Majesty, if not for our protection, who knows how badly that bastard would have bullied our little princess. You're far too kind. Were it up to me, I'd have skinned her alive to avenge Corvina. Orion wiped blood from his lips, casting a pleading glance toward the Phoenix Queen. Your Majesty, that bastard somehow mastered forbidden arts. Her spiritual power has surged beyond even my ability to counter. When I challenged her earlier to defend Corvina's honor, she wounded me instead. As the words faded, Corvina tenderly caressed Orion's face with aching heart. Brother Orion, it's all my fault for showing mercy and saving that wretched creature years ago. You'd never have been hurt by her otherwise. Orion gazed back at Corvina with equally affectionate eyes. For you, I'd gladly face death itself. How utterly insolent. Aurelia, kneel and apologize to Corvina and Orion now, and I might spare your life. Otherwise, don't blame me for abandoning our past bonds. The Phoenix Queen's brow furrowed tightly, her eyes blazing with fury. Her icy, merciless voice rang in my ears yet pierced straight through my heart. I let out a derisive laugh and sneered. How dare they demand an apology from me? They're not even worthy, but if they kneel and beg for my forgiveness today, I might just spare their miserable lives when Father returns. You wretched bastard! You're courting death. The Phoenix Queen erupted in fury. With a thunderous roar, crimson light exploded around her as the spectral form of a flaming phoenix spread its wings and shrieked behind her. I narrowed my eyes at her. My own mother intends to kill me. Before she struck, I gave one final warning. Mother, are you certain? If you raise your hand against me, the last shred of kinship between us will be severed. The Phoenix Queen barely hesitated before gathering her spiritual energy and lunging toward me. This was the Phoenix clan's killing technique. She truly meant to end me. With bitter resignation, I closed my eyes and spread my arms to embrace her assault. Just as her energy was about to strike, blinding golden light erupted around me. A pair of phoenix wings unfurled from behind, cradling me like a protective embrace and deflecting the Queen's attack. This is the heart guard feather my father left me before his departure. Father's resonant voice still echoes in my ears. Aurelia, with my heart guard feather protecting you, no harm shall befall you. Surging spiritual energy erupted in all directions. Everyone present except the Phoenix Queen was sent flying and knocked to the ground. I opened my eyes to see the Phoenix Queen staring at me in astonishment. You can't harm me. The Emperor will return shortly. You'd better think carefully about how to explain yourself to him. I heard my imperial father is returning. The Phoenix Empress panicked instantly. With desperate resolve, she even drew upon her heart's blood to amplify her magic, preparing to strike me down once more. I knew exactly what she was scheming. All these years, my imperial father has been away purging the remnants of the demonic tribes. He never returned to Wutong Island, nor did he ever visit me at Danshui Mountain. Since the Emperor wouldn't recognize me anyway, the Empress planned to kill me and pass Corvina off as his true daughter. With no living witness to dispute her claim, the Emperor would have no choice but to accept Corvina as his own. But the bond between my father and me isn't something she can just dismiss. The Phoenix Queen raised both hands overhead, channeling her lifeblood to concentrate spiritual energy, poised to strike me down. Corvina alone is the true imperial princess of our Phoenix lineage. As for you, bastard spawn, perish. How dare you? Before the Phoenix Queen could complete her incantation, a thunderous roar echoed through the hall as a surge of spiritual energy struck her, forcibly interrupting her spell casting. Overwhelmed by the tremendous force, the Phoenix Queen collapsed, coughing up blood. Following the sound, there stood my father, the Emperor, striding forward with hands clasped behind his back. Say it again, who is the true princess of our Phoenix clan? Whose death are you demanding? The entire court gasped under the crushing pressure of my father's divine aura. All hail the Phoenix Emperor. Aurelia, father has returned. My father spread his arms wide, gazing at me with tender affection. My nose stung with emotion as I threw myself into his embrace. Father, you're finally back. Your only daughter was nearly bullied to death. With that, I pointed at the three people whose cheeks I'd slapped swollen, pouting playfully at my father, especially those three. What my mother didn't know was that while my father couldn't return physically, he often met with me through the Phoenix Feather mirror. I'd already sent word to my father the moment I overheard the immortal attendant's conversation, urging him to return as soon as possible. Lilith, didn't I tell you to take care of our daughter? What in the world are you doing? The Emperor held me with one arm while pointing furiously at the Phoenix Queen with the other. The Phoenix Queen staggered back from the shout, collapsing to the floor before tremblingly crawling to the Emperor's feet. My lord, this is our clan's internal affair. Let us settle it privately behind closed doors. Aurelia isn't fully established yet. Surely you don't want her catching unwanted attention from outsiders. What do you mean I'm not established? That I'd attract attention? I looked at the Emperor in confusion. The Emperor remained silent for a moment before speaking. 3. Let me make this perfectly clear today. The Phoenix clan has only ever recognized Aurelia as our sole imperial princess. Our hospitality has been lacking today. We must ask you all to take your leave now. As for the Clam and Koi clans, I shall pay them a visit soon to personally ask those old fools how they raised their daughters. The assembled guests dared not speak another word. Bowing respectfully before filing out in silence, only Sylvia and Zinnia remained, weeping as they knelt before me, kowtowing desperately for mercy. With a sweep of his hand, the Emperor hurled them out and slammed the palace doors shut. Only the four of us remained in the hall. The Emperor struck the Phoenix Queen across the face without hesitation. The Queen's cheeks swelled instantly, yet she dared not protest, shielding Corvina behind her like a mother eagle protecting her chick. If my lord must vent his anger, direct it solely at me, spare Corvina from harm. The Emperor laughed in cold fury. After all this time, you still defend this bastard of unknown origin. You're no longer fit to be Phoenix Queen. As for this bastard, skin him alive and throw the carcass into the frozen abyss. The Phoenix Queen finally panicked, crawling to my feet and desperately clutching my robe as she pleaded, Aurelia, Aurelia, speak for your mother, please. When I first gave birth to you, you were too frail to leave Vermilion Peak. Then your father abandoned me, leaving me alone to rule the Phoenix clan. If not for Corvina keeping her majesty company, how would the Queen Mother endure these endless nights? I looked down imperiously at the Phoenix Queen. I'll spare her life, on one condition. The Phoenix Queen and Corvina's eyes instantly lit up as they nodded frantically. Absolutely. I'll agree to any terms. I let out a soft chuckle before enunciating each word deliberately. I want Corvina to be my personal maidservant. What? Corvina had long forgotten the vast difference in our current social standings. She scrambled up, eyes blazing, and pointed a trembling finger at me. How dare you, a nobody, demand I serve as your maid? Silence. Aurelia offering you the maid's position is a chance for redemption. How can you be so ungrateful? The Phoenix Queen slapped Corvina hard across the face, then kicked her knees to force her into a kneeling position before me. How dare you not pay respects to the young imperial princess? With tear-filled eyes, Corvina shot me a defiant glare before reluctantly kowtowing with forced obedience. This humble one greets the imperial princess. The Phoenix Queen finally let out a relieved sigh when she saw I'd stopped giving Corvina a hard time. As I raised my eyes, I caught a fleeting glimpse of malice in the Phoenix Queen's gaze. The more she acted this way, the more suspicious I became. A smirk curled at my lips. I was determined to uncover whatever secrets they were hiding. Having just returned, the Emperor had urgent clan matters to attend to and departed in haste. I returned to the palace with Corvina following behind me, now dressed in maid's attire. Never had I seen such resplendent halls. Even the beaded curtains were strung with rare spirit pearls centuries in the making, yet with but a flick of my wrist, I reduced those precious orbs to dust, tacky trash. Get every last relic of the previous decor out of my palace this instant. Word of the banquet hall incident had spread like wildfire. The entire court now recognized me as the true Phoenix princess. None dared show anything less than absolute devotion to my commands. Servants scurried in without delay, hauling away every trace of Corvina's former possessions. Corvina watched heartbroken as I destroyed her cherished possessions, grinding her teeth in fury. I lounged on the coral chair while Corvina knelt at my feet massaging them. Whether it was too light or left bruises, the response was always a slap. The more Corvina resisted, the harder I struck. A maidservant who had served Corvina since childhood could no longer stand by and watch. With fury written across her face, she rushed forward to shield Corvina behind her and turned to rebuke me. What in heaven's name are you doing, Your Highness? This is utterly unacceptable. By any measure, Lady Corvina is Her Majesty's adopted daughter. How dare you treat her with such contempt? Before your return, our Phoenix clan cherished and doted on Lady Corvina as she grew up. For you to act so arrogantly on your very first day back is beyond improper. If the Celestial Queen learns how you've mistreated her beloved daughter, rest assured you won't escape unscathed. I remained silent, first casting a glance at the other maids standing in the hall. Though none dared to openly challenge me like this fool before me, their eyes all burned with defiance. I arched an eyebrow and let out a soft chuckle. With a mere flick of my finger, I slit the maid's throat. Her eyes widened as she collapsed to the ground, lifeless. The maid's blood splattered across Corvina's face. The entire hall froze in terror. When they regained their senses, all the maids hastily knelt and chorused with trembling voices, "Your Highness, please calm your anger. Aurelia, how utterly cruel of you. She merely spoke the truth. Must you take her life for that? Do you think being the Phoenix clan's imperial princess gives you the right to treat lives so carelessly? When I report this to Her Majesty, she will surely punish you." Corvina rose in fury, pointing at me with righteous indignation. It seems Corvina still fails to grasp the gravity of her situation. Since she clearly lacks respect for hierarchy, I shall take it upon myself to educate her. With a dismissive wave, I commanded coldly, "This insolent wench has overstepped her station. Take her away and give her 30 lashes." Having witnessed my merciless methods, none dared to disobey my orders. Corvina was dragged screaming and thrashing to the steps of my palace. The whip lashed across Corvina's back again and again, her wails piercing the heavens. Corvina, the Phoenix Queen, must have heard Corvina's desperate cries and came rushing to her aid, her face twisted in anguish as she gritted her teeth at me. "Aurelia, she was practically raised by Her Majesty. Could you at least spare the Queen Mother some dignity? A child's misdeeds reflect the mother's failure. Since the Queen Mother raised her, let Her Majesty administer the punishment." The Phoenix Queen's pupils contracted sharply as she stared at me in disbelief. Corvina's entire body trembled as she shook her head pleadingly at the Phoenix Queen, feigning heartbreak with a dramatic hand over my chest. I pouted. "What's this, Mother? Can't bear to part with her. You're breaking my heart, and when I'm heartbroken, Father will have her skinned alive." "Fine, fine, fine." The Phoenix Queen snatched the whip from her maid's hands and brought it down mercilessly on Corvina's back, each lash drawing fresh blood. When the punishment concluded, the trembling queen dropped the bloodied whip to the ground. Just as I rose to speak, a maidservant entered the hall. "Your Highness, the Dragon King and Crown Prince have come to offer apologies. The Phoenix Emperor requests your presence." I nodded and stepped past Corvina, casting a glance at the Phoenix Queen who was tending to her wounds. The Phoenix Queen lifted her gaze. Meeting my eyes, I shot her a challenging look, curled my lips slightly, then walked away without a backward glance, leaving the two behind to weep in each other's arms, mother and daughter, one in physical agony, the other in heartache. Only I was left feeling absolutely exhilarated. In the imperial palace of my father, the Dragon King stood beside my father, bowing with clasped hands while murmuring incessantly. Orion knelt nearby with his head lowered. Upon my arrival, the Dragon King immediately rushed to my side, pleading with servile humility. "My son Orion has been utterly disrespectful. I've already disciplined him by breaking his legs, so I beg your Highness not to hold this against him. Our clan has brought numerous rare treasures for your Highness. We humbly request your gracious acceptance." I glanced at the mountain of treasures piled in the grand hall and nodded at the Dragon King. "You're forgiven. You may leave now." The Dragon King raised his head awkwardly, hesitating before finally saying, "What about the marriage arrangement between the princess and the Dragon Clan?" "Of course it still stands." The Phoenix Queen entered in visible excitement. "The marriage between our Corvina and your Orion shall proceed as planned. This changes nothing." The Dragon King wore an awkward expression as he protested. "I was referring to the Imperial Princess. Is that Corvina even worthy of the title? Some lowborn wretch of unknown origin dares dream of marrying into our dragon lineage as the crown princess. For millennia, the Dragon Clan has failed to produce high-ranking descendants, thus they pin their hopes on me, the purest-blooded Phoenix Imperial Princess, to break heaven's curse and bear them a golden dragon heir." With that, he ignored the Phoenix Queen's stormy countenance. The Dragon King then forced Orion to kneel before me, pleading, "I beg you, young princess, should you consent to this union, our dragonkin shall obey your every command without the slightest disrespect." When I remained silent, the Dragon King continued, "If all else fails, Orion could marry into the Phoenix clan. That way, the young princess wouldn't have to leave Phoenix Island." Just as I was about to refuse, my father spoke first. "Aurelia is already betrothed and will be wed soon. The Dragon Clan is most welcome to attend her wedding celebration." What? Everyone present stood frozen in shock, myself included. As if struck by lightning, the Emperor took my hand with a beaming smile and spoke, "It's Lord Helios. I'd already made arrangements with him before returning." No sooner had these words been spoken than the Dragon King collapsed to the ground, overwhelmed. The Queen Mother glared at me with gritted teeth, her nails digging into her palms. I alone stared blankly at the Emperor, utterly bewildered. After dismissing everyone else, the Emperor finally revealed the whole truth to me. "Aurelia, you've come of age. There are certain matters your father must not disclose. The truth is, Lilith isn't your birth mother. Your real mother is the ancient divine Phoenix." It was from my father's words that I finally learned the truth of those days. Turns out my mother, the ancient divine Phoenix, perished during the Celestial War when I was still in embryonic form. To protect me, she placed me within the Phoenix Queen's womb. where I was carried to term. The Phoenix Queen was merely a handmaiden serving my mother at that time. Through tears, she vowed to my mother that she would protect me alongside the Emperor. That was precisely why His Majesty later elevated her to Phoenix Queen. Had I known she'd treat you this way, I'd never have trusted her with your care. As for your betrothal to Lord Helios, it was arranged by your mother. I've personally vetted the young man, he's quite decent. I nodded, feeling the divine phoenix bloodline coursing faintly through my veins. So this is how much my mother loved me. Why then does the Phoenix Queen dote so on Corvina? Could she actually be her biological daughter? Suddenly, the fog in my mind lifted, and everything became crystal clear. Since the Phoenix Queen did assist my mother in bringing me into this world, and both she and Corvina have been behaving properly lately, attending to me with great care, I decided to let bygones be bygones. In the following days, I devoted myself entirely to wedding preparations. Though I'd never met Helios, he'd gathered treasures from every corner of the realm and delivered them to my palace. He truly had my best interests at heart. On the eve of our wedding, I sat before the bronze mirror in my bridal gown for final adjustments. The Phoenix Queen entered with tearful eyes and began combing my hair. I was blinded before. Which made me treat you so harshly? Yet you bear no grudge against me. I truly repent my mistakes. Though you're not my flesh and blood, the bond between us remains that of mother and daughter. Rest assured, I'll make your journey peaceful. The Empress's final words were barely a whisper. I raised my eyes, meeting her gaze reflected in the bronze mirror. The Phoenix Queen curled her lips in a sinister smirk, her eyes glinting with venom. The next instant, I felt my entire body bound as consciousness slipped away. Collapsing to the ground, the Phoenix Queen finally revealed her true nature, looking down at me with cold superiority. Your mother's already dead. Why cling to life? Why not join her in the underworld? For, how impressive, Mother Queen. Corvina emerged from behind the beaded curtain, linking arms with the Phoenix Queen while kicking me disdainfully. You fatherless, motherless wretch dare order me around. Had you stayed quietly in Donshua Mountain, I might have spared your life. Who knew you'd be so ungrateful? Once I extract and consume your core, I'll take your form and ride the bridal sedan to marry Lord Helios, the Phoenix Queen continued. Once it's done, they'll have no choice but to accept it. After you're gone, my own daughter shall be the sole imperial princess of the Phoenix clan. The triumphant laughter of mother and daughter echoed through the palace halls. Then came a searing pain in my chest as my golden core was brutally ripped from within me. Throw her into the frost abyss. I only felt my body being dragged away before plunging into the bone-chilling pond. A faint smile curled at the corners of my lips. They've finally taken the bait. My veins carry the blood of the divine phoenix, meaning only through rebirth can my lineage awaken. Like the phoenix reborn from ashes, one must either descend to endure mortal trials or face utter destruction to achieve rebirth. I knew this mother-daughter pair wouldn't let things rest so easily. Then I'll use their schemes to awaken my ancestral bloodline. As I sank deeper, chaotic spiritual energy surged wildly through my veins. Oh no, suddenly, a pair of crimson gold pupils ignited in the depths of the pool. It's that black serpent who once battled the dragon prince. The blood gushing from my chest drew it near, and now the serpent fixes its greedy gaze upon me. The divine bloodline within me holds the key to demonic ascension, making me irresistible prey for the black serpent. Not that I fear being devoured by him, but with my spiritual energy still depleted, I'm powerless to fight back. Until my bloodline awakens, I'll likely endure another round of torment. As the serpent lunged for my throat, I shut my eyes and desperately drew upon the ambient spiritual energy, just praying to regain my physical form soon and end this suffering. Wretched beast, you can't escape. Suddenly, a violet glowing dragon descended from the sky, plunging straight toward the pool's depths. Seizing the black serpent's moment of vulnerability, he sank his fangs into its neck. The black serpent let out a pained wail before plummeting into the pool's depths. Back then I nearly lost to you, making me the laughingstock across all realms. But now you've fallen by my hand. Ah! The man's triumphant laughter echoed through the entire Frostmoon cavern. When my vision cleared, I recognized him, Dragon Prince Orion. Orion fished me out from the frigid cave pool the moment he saw me. He trembled like he'd seen a ghost and dropped me back in, the Phoenix clan's imperial princess. Just as he regained his senses and reached to pull me up again, a golden light sent him flying. I meditated at the bottom of the pool. Spiritual energy surged violently into my body as my physical form began rapid reconstruction. Blinding golden light erupted from my being while crimson wings, fiery as flames, unfurled beneath the waters. My nirvana rebirth is complete. I soared from the depths of the pool, hovering midair as my crimson robes billowed in the wind, the divine mark upon my forehead pulsing with faint radiance. Orion immediately dropped to his knees before me, kowtowing repeatedly. All hail the primordial phoenix goddess. My feet lightly touched the ground as I approached Orion and spoke softly. Why are you here? Orion kept his head bowed and replied reverently, This humble one is Orion, crown prince of the dragon clan. I was sent here by my father to reflect on my mistakes. Look up. Orion trembled all over, fearing he had disturbed my rest, and dared not open his eyes. Forgive my intrusion. Divine maiden, I meant no disrespect. I chuckled softly. Look closely, who do you see before you? Orion finally opened his eyes. The moment he recognized my face, he froze as if nailed to the spot, lips parted in silent shock. Your Highness, he wasn't entirely foolish. After a moment's contemplation, he grasped the secret, then he bowed to me solemnly once more. This junior has offended you earlier. I beg the goddess's forgiveness. I nodded, and a golden light streamed from my fingertips into Orion's forehead, healing his wounds. Since you helped me deal with the Black Serpent, I shall bestow a great gift upon your dragon kin. Return and tell your emperor this. After 10,000 years of atonement, send your 3 mightiest dragon warriors to guard the abyss of demons, and heaven's punishment shall be lifted. Orion wept with joy, kowtowing repeatedly, our deepest gratitude, divine maiden, our eternal thanks, emerging from the Frostfall cavern. I spotted a streak of rosy clouds on the horizon, the telltale sign of the Phoenix clan's princess preparing for her wedding procession. Then it's time for my vengeance. I strolled leisurely back to my palace. All the handmaidens were engrossed in their tasks, none noticing my return. Corvina sat before the bronze mirror, already adorned in the Phoenix coronet and ceremonial robes, her face now bearing my likeness. My daughter is truly radiant. The finest treasures across all realms rightfully belong to you. The Phoenix Queen gazed at Corvina's face with undisguised pride. I strode into the bedchamber and let out a derisive laugh. This divine beauty is mine alone. What concern is it of your daughter? Surprised, Lilith, your sovereign has returned. The Phoenix Queen and Corvina both turned toward me with stunned expressions. Why you? Who are you? Who do you think I am? I struck the Phoenix Queen's chest with my palm, sending her flying meters away where she collapsed motionless. Mother, Corvina rushed to help the Phoenix Queen up, shooting me a venomous glare. This is my wedding day with Lord Helios. How dare you act so insolently? Corvina's eyes burned with absolute conviction. I shook my head. Did this fool truly believe stealing my core would make him my replacement? Just as I was about to deal with him, an agitated voice rang out. The goddess has descended upon us. As I stepped out of the palace, I beheld a miraculous sight. Countless birds gathered overhead. At the cry of a sacred phoenix, the entire flock bowed in reverence toward me. In that instant, divine hymns resonated across all realms. Hail the descent of the divine maiden. With tears in his eyes, the emperor embraced me tightly. Aurelia, you've actually awakened the divine phoenix bloodline. I affectionately clung to my father's arm. Indeed, my awakening of the divine Phoenix bloodline wouldn't have been possible without the Phoenix Queen and Corvina's help. I recounted yesterday's events to His Majesty. Enraged, the Emperor waved his hand, and both the Phoenix Queen and Corvina were dragged before me. Outrageous, you vile wretches. Seeing His Majesty raise his hand to strike them down, I immediately intervened. Letting them die like this would be far too merciful. Don't you think? Corvina trembled violently like a sieve, kowtowing to me repeatedly with tears streaming down her face. Divine maiden, spare me. I beg for your mercy. I was wrong. I truly admit my wrongdoing. It was her. She made me do it. She's the one. Please don't kill me. Corvina was still wearing my face, and the sight of it was downright irritating. With a flick of my finger, my golden core flew out from her body and landed in my palm. The core spun and pulsated excitedly in my hand before finally returning to my body. On top of that, I also extracted Corvina's core. Stripped of her inner core, Corvina instantly reverted to her true form. Corvina was actually a black crow. The bloodied crow now lay crumpled on the ground, flapping its wings in grotesque desperation. Corvina, Corvina, the Phoenix Queen wailed as she lunged forward, clutching Corvina to her chest. With a flick of my wrist, I sent the Phoenix Queen flying with a gust of wind, sending the raven tumbling through the air and scattering black feathers. I raised my hand, and the Phoenix Queen was yanked toward me by her throat. The Phoenix Queen's face turned crimson, her eyes bulging with rage. A faint whisper escaped her clenched teeth. Let go. I channeled a beam of golden light into the Phoenix Queen's forehead. The full truth unfolded in my mind. 5. So the fall of the ancient divine Phoenix was actually linked to the Phoenix Queen. The Phoenix Queen served as my mother's handmaiden for years, but grew ambitious after gaining her favor. Before the Divine War, she secretly poisoned my mother with Godslayer's Bane when her guard was down. This caused my mother's divine power to wane during battle, leaving her vulnerable to the demonic ambush that claimed her life. By then, she'd already pledged her heart to a black raven and intended to bear his offspring. Also, her crow-blooded offspring could gain the Phoenix clan's favor. That's why she used her pregnancy with me as pretext to become my father's queen. After birthing Corvina, she proclaimed her as the Phoenix clan's sole imperial princess. I flung the Phoenix Queen onto the ground. The Phoenix Queen gasped for air. I was wrong. Please, I beg you to spare my life, if only for the sake of my years of loyal service to the ancient divine Phoenix. How dare you mention my mother? I raised my hand, channeling spiritual energy to strike the Phoenix Queen's chest. The Phoenix Queen crashed onto the palace steps, blood gushing uncontrollably from her mouth. Now I shall send you to atone for my mother's death." With a flick of my finger, the sky darkened instantly as divine lightning descended, striking directly into the Phoenix Queen's body. After the piercing scream, I shattered the Phoenix Queen's mortal form in an instant, yet I spared a wisp of her soul, casting it into the abyss to suffer eternal torment from demonic hordes. Atonement for my mother's suffering. I approached the Black Raven. The Black Raven flapped its wings twice. I summoned another bolt of lightning to strike Corvina. In an instant, Corvina vanished into ashes, leaving only 2 black feathers drifting slowly through the air. My father, the Emperor, was weeping like a fool beside me, so she didn't have to die after all. It's all my fault. Had I stayed by her side every moment back then, she might still be alive. I stepped forward and gave his shoulder a comforting pat. "My mother died for the peace of the 3 realms. You needn't blame yourself, Father. Had she known you've spent millennia guarding against demonic forces, Father, she would have been so proud." A sudden gust of warm breeze brushed against my face. My right hand rose to touch the lingering warmth on my cheek. Amidst the golden shimmer, I could almost see Mother walking toward me. Her sleeves fluttered gracefully as she gazed at me with tender affection, gently caressing my cheek. "You've done so well, my dear child. Mother loves you." Suddenly, auspicious clouds filled the sky, bathing everything in radiant twilight hues. Tears welled in my eyes. I knew this was my mother blessing me on my wedding day. I donned the phoenix robe and stepped out of the palace. The entire phoenix trio was encircled by dragons, their earth-shaking roars echoing across the land. The entire dragon clan knelt in unison, proclaiming, "We bid farewell to the divine maiden on her sacred matrimony." I looked up. Lord Helios descended from the highest heavens in wedding attire, extending his hand toward me. "Aurelia, I'm here." Amidst blessings from all corners of the realm, I stepped into the bridal sedan. Having ascended the 9-fold heavens, I gazed upon the abyss and witnessed the Phoenix Queen writhing in torment beneath the onslaught of countless demons. I turned away, receiving the prostrations of 10,000 deities. I alone am the supreme sovereign of heaven and earth. None shall ever take my place. The end. Next story. When the extreme cold weather arrived, I was lying on the sofa, munching on grilled skewers, with the meat sizzling and spitting fat on the stove, comfortably warming myself by the fire and sipping tea. I created a group chat with my ex-boyfriend and best friend, who were both struggling on the brink of life and death, and sent them a video. I asked them with a smile, "Want some?" I was reborn. In my previous life, I discovered my boyfriend Anthony's affair with my best friend Allison and uncovered their plot to swindle my money and take my life. Enraged, they pushed me out of the door, and to my utter disbelief, it bizarrely began to snow heavily in what should have been a September weather. The temperature plummeted to -50 degrees overnight, and there I was, frozen to death at the doorstep, filled with hatred. As my consciousness blurred, I cursed them, vowing that if I had another life, I would make sure this treacherous couple could neither live peacefully nor die easily. What was an extreme cold that numbed me was suddenly replaced by intense heat, and someone nudged me. "Alyssa, hurry up, please." I opened my eyes in surprise to find myself standing at the entrance of my company, blocking the way as my colleagues behind me grew impatient. "What's happening?" I instinctively checked my phone. It was August 13th. I had actually been reborn. Sent back to 20 days before my death, I was both shocked and overjoyed, first laughing and then crying uncontrollably. I wanted to rush back and kill those betrayers immediately, but I soon calmed down, remembering the sudden and unprecedented freak snowstorm that occurred just before my death. This summer was exceptionally hot, everyone dependent on air conditioning for survival, and it was only by the end of August that it started to cool down a bit. Who could have imagined that right after September began, I would be frozen to death? So, the most important thing for me now wasn't seeking revenge on those betrayers but finding a way to survive the upcoming unpredictable cold spell. Ignoring the looks from colleagues who thought I had gone mad, I went to resign from my job. Then, I returned to the house I shared with Anthony and packed up all my important belongings. However, I wasn't in a rush to leave. On the way back, I had already decided that even if I were to leave, I wouldn't let him off easily. I found Anthony's documents and downloaded several loan apps, entering his information into them, then cooked a great meal, waiting for Anthony to come home from work. When Anthony came home and saw me with a sweet smile and a table full of dishes, he was astonished. I gently told him that I planned to sell one of the houses my parents left me to buy the house he had his eye on for our marriage home. Anthony and Allison had been plotting how to coax me into selling my parents' house to get my money, and seeing that I was finally willing to sell, he was overjoyed and came over to kiss me. I pushed him away. "Let's eat. I've taken a week off, and I need to meet with the agent first thing tomorrow." During dinner, I playfully pulled out my phone to make a funny video with him. Anthony usually hated being filmed, but now that he needed me to sell the house, he was completely accommodating, blinking when asked to blink and shaking his head when asked to shake. Seeing that over $1 million in loans had been deposited into the apps, I uninstalled the apps and put down my phone with a laugh. I can't seem to get it right. Let's stop filming. We both enjoyed that dinner very much, and the atmosphere was exceptionally harmonious. The next day, after Anthony went to work, I packed up my belongings and left with my cat Coco. My parents left me 2 properties before they died. One was in the city center, a school district house which I had rented out since I lived in a boarding school during high school. The other was a small villa at the foot of Zijing Mountain on the outskirts of Ning City. Although it was in a remote location and couldn't compare in price to those in the city, it provided the perfect escape. Selling the apartment would easily allow me to upgrade to a better property in the city. But this place is my home, and I could never bring myself to sell it. The house had been unoccupied for a long time. While I had it cleaned, I pondered how to prepare it to withstand the deadly cold spells that were coming. Could I rely on underfloor heating or air conditioning? Neither option was feasible. The heavy snow would surely freeze the pipes and crush the electrical wires, making it impossible to depend on such amenities for warmth. Then it hit me, the bomb shelter. I suddenly sprang into action, rushing to the basement, on the east wall. There was an iron door. I grabbed the rusty handle and pulled hard, a cool breeze hitting me as I opened it. This was the place. When my father was renovating this house, the wall adjacent to Mount Zijin unexpectedly collapsed, revealing a bomb shelter built during the war era. The shelter was 4 meters wide and 50 meters long, naturally insulated to stay cool in the summer and warm in the winter. It was also quite dry inside, so my father cleaned it up and turned it into our storage room. During the summers, my family of 3 would sleep there, enjoying the cool retreat. My mother often joked that the shelter saved us a lot on electricity bills. With this temperature-stable shelter, why should I fear extreme weather? I had the cleaners tidy up the shelter and hired some workers to lime wash the interior. By the time we finished, it was already dark. Anthony called, his voice dripping with emotion, inquiring about the house sale. I gave him a few perfunctory replies and hung up. The man really knew how to act, full of longing, yet he hadn't even noticed that my belongings were missing. Probably celebrating with Allison that they had tricked me into agreeing to sell, but I had no time to bother with him. There were more pressing matters at hand. The next morning, I hired someone to improve the ventilation of the bomb shelter. I vividly remembered that before I died, the snow had reached waist height, surely blocking the original air vents. The workers, focused only on their task without idle chatter, fitted each vent with long stainless steel pipes topped with matching caps to prevent snow from clogging them. Then, I bought 2 stoves, one purely for heating and another for both heating and cooking, each equipped with a chimney that extended outside, eliminating the risk of carbon monoxide poisoning. After having them installed, I stockpiled a large amount of firewood and charcoal, and also bought a grill. When the apocalypse arrived, and with no utilities to rely on, the primitive method of using wood was the safest for both heating and cooking. Although the cave maintained a constant temperature, I wasn't sure how low it would actually drop, so it was better to be safe than sorry. Anticipating that the water pipes might also freeze, I decided to have a well dug in the basement. Like the bomb shelter, the well water would remain at a constant temperature and wouldn't freeze, regardless of the external cold. The well digger was surprised, asking why I didn't have the well outside in the courtyard. I had my excuse ready, claiming I was developing a skincare product that required water untouched by sunlight. The man, utterly convinced by my earnest gibberish, admired my ingenuity and quickly got the job done. Next, it was time to stock up on supplies. Before I died, the snow had already risen above my waist overnight, making it impossible to leave the house. If there are no supplies at home, one risks not just freezing to death, but also starving, considering the possibility of power outages. I purchased 30 boxes of candles, 20 solar-powered lights, 20 high-capacity power banks, 2 boxes of matches, 2 boxes of lighters, and 2 boxes of windproof torches. I stocked up with 500 pounds of rice, 50 pounds of flour, 20 boxes of dried noodles, 20 boxes of instant noodles, and 200 boxes of water. I gathered various dried vegetables, chicken feet, duck necks, beef jerky, rice noodles, drinks, coffee, and various types of canned food. Toiletries and essentials like toilet paper, sanitary pads, disposable underwear, shampoo, shower gel, facial cleanser, toothpaste, toothbrushes, skincare products, as well as all sorts of medicines, gauze, and disinfectants I could think of. I prepared a variety of down quilts and down jackets of different thicknesses, hats, scarves, moisture-proof gloves, high-top waterproof thermal boots, windproof goggles, and masks. I also bought shovels, axes, saws, and various other tools and weapons for self-defense. I purchased all new furniture like beds, tables, chairs, and bookshelves. As I didn't want to change or move any of the existing furniture at home, I almost neurotically forced myself to keep everything just as it was when my parents were alive. This way, I felt as if the car accident 3 years ago never happened, as if they had just gone out and would be returning soon. Supplies continuously arrived at my home, And the property security and neighbors have seen my house being noisily dismantled and repaired. I told them the house hadn't been lived in for a while and needed renovation, so they weren't surprised to see workers delivering goods, as it's common to spend a lot before moving into a house. Once I had all the supplies in place, there was only 1 week left before the expected cold snap. During this period, Anthony called me daily to inquire about the house selling matters, several times. I almost burst out laughing. I turned on the surveillance system I had installed the day I left and watched as he talked to me affectionately on the phone while being cozy with Allison in his arms. Suppressing my disgust, I squeezed my voice and asked Anthony, "Do you love me?" Anthony answered smoothly, "Of course, I love you, my dearest." After saying this, he kissed Allison forcefully on the face, then said, "Did you hear that, sweetheart? I'm kissing you." As soon as he finished speaking, Allison and he silently burst into laughter together. I sat with my legs crossed and said nonchalantly, "I heard, but somehow, I feel like you're actually kissing a pig." Allison, who was in his arms, immediately jumped up, her face filled with anger and about to explode, but Anthony quickly gestured with his finger for her to keep quiet and said to me, "Silly girl, don't call yourself a pig, of course. I wasn't talking about myself. Oh, by the way, have you seen Allison these past few days?" Anthony then appeared a bit nervous, waving his hands at Allison, saying, "No, why would I see her?" I acted relieved and said, "Good that you haven't. She's been trying to borrow money everywhere to pay off her brother's gambling debts. I've advised her several times, but she won't listen." Just before I left, I saw a woman being embraced by a short, fat man entering a hotel. She looked a lot like her, but, well, I hope it wasn't her. Watching Anthony's face change on the monitor and Allison's face showing panic, I hung up the phone with a smile. Allison and I were college classmates. Her family favored sons over daughters, and her brother was no good. I felt sorry for her and tried to treat her well, even though she had to resort to being with an older man named Wine to pay off her brother's debts. I never looked down on her, just felt sorry for her. I never mentioned a word to Anthony. But despite my genuine affection for her, she not only stole my boyfriend but also tried to take my life. In my past life, because Coco always got mysteriously injured, I installed surveillance cameras at home. However, before I could inform Anthony, I caught him and Allison engaging in unspeakable acts on my bed. Later, Allison urged Anthony to hurry and deceive me into selling the house and buying insurance. She suggested that if I refused to comply, he should marry me first and then find an opportunity to kill me. That way, as my sole heir, he would inherit all my family's assets. Apart from 2 houses, my family's assets included 3 well-located shops, but we were just moderately well-off, not rich. I never imagined that for such a small amount of assets, this friend whom I regarded as a sister would actually want to take my life. In my past life, in anger, I confronted them directly. After I exposed that despicable pair, they actually pushed me out of the house I had rented for convenience to work. I was the real owner of that house, thinking of the humiliation of being beaten and driven out, of the torment I endured before being frozen to death, of my desperate pleas for them to open the door just to let me take my phone and documents, which they refused, filled me with hatred. In the surveillance footage, Anthony had already started questioning, while Allison swore she had never cheated and insisted I was framing her. I watched them argue on the monitor with a smile, curious how long it would take them to notice that my belongings were gone. I was even more curious about Anthony's reaction when he realized he had accrued so much debt. Unfortunately, they only knew my parents left me houses, but not the addresses, so even if he realized he had been tricked, he couldn't find me. I looked forward to the expression on his face when that time came. After turning off the surveillance, I went out to the market to pick up the pork and vegetables I had ordered. When I got home, the cleaning lady had gathered several of my aunts at the door. Everyone entered and got busy, washing vegetables, mixing fillings, kneading dough. They started making dumplings, wontons, and fried meatballs efficiently. Home-cooked food, regardless of the ingredients or cleanliness, is definitely better than what's bought outside. I didn't want to suffer from stomach troubles in the apocalypse due to unhygienic food. I had already rented 5 commercial freezers for storing food. When the cold weather came, the outdoors would serve as a natural freezer, so even if the power went out, I wouldn't worry. My aunts were surprised that I wanted to make so many dumplings. I told them that they were to be donated to a nursing home while making dumplings. I chatted with my aunts about various topics like the surge in electricity costs in Finland, the massive purchase of firewood by the public to get through the winter, and Germany's natural gas shortage making heating a problem. Finally, I solemnly said that although everything in our country is fine, it's wise to be prepared for any eventuality, like storing some charcoal. It's okay if we don't need it. Having it keeps us at ease. My aunts, thoroughly influenced by the anxiety I had intentionally spread, all nodded in agreement. Right, it's better to be safe than sorry. I sighed in relief, hoping they would indeed go and buy some. With extreme weather and the apocalypse approaching, saving even one life is a victory. Once the 5 freezers were packed, the long spell of hot weather finally gave way to a long-awaited coolness. But I knew this was just a small comfort before the arrival of the Grim Reaper. I started arranging for farmers to deliver vegetables. Apart from a small amount of greens like spinach, most were durable storage vegetables like cabbage, sweet potatoes, and pumpkins. I stored everything deep inside the bomb shelter. Then, I had someone reinforce the doors and windows. It wasn't that I was worried about security, rather, when the cold snap hit, the snow piled up above waist height overnight, making it impossible to move around. I was only concerned that the heavy snow and low temperatures might damage the doors and windows, which would ruin the inside of the house. After all that, there were only 2 days left before the cold arrived. Anthony finally discovered the large amount of loans he had accrued. He called me, asking what was going on. Lying on the couch, leisurely petting Coco, who was snoring on my lap, I lazily responded, "What loan? I don't know what you're talking about. The money was transferred to your card." "How can you deny it?" Anthony was furious. "Alyssa, what are you trying to do? Money?" I replied, a bit more seriously. "Are you talking about the $1.23 million you transferred to me a few days ago? You finally admit it." Anthony exploded, then realized something. "What do you mean I transferred it? When did I transfer it to you?" I answered with feigned surprise. "What? It was the night before I left. You said you wanted to pay back the money I lent you. I told you there was no rush. But you insisted on settling debts clearly, even between brothers." Anthony was clearly stunned. "What are you talking about?" I sent him a photo of a promissory note that clearly stated he borrowed $1.23 million in cash from me, to be repaid within a year with a 2% interest rate. Anthony lost it. "When did I ever borrow money from you?" I also froze. "What do you mean? Are you trying to back out now?" Of course. Anthony denied it all, crying out over the phone, demanding I return the money immediately or he would sue me. I smirked. I wouldn't have dared to do this if I feared his threats. I had prepared the evidence chain well in advance: the promissory note, a large cash withdrawal record, and the bank surveillance footage. The promissory note was forged by me, but the signature at the end was indeed his own handwriting. Don't ask. Just know you should never sign your name on a blank piece of paper thoughtlessly. The large cash withdrawal was even simpler. It was the compensation money for my parents' car accident. Before the spring festival, my uncle needed money for his construction project, so I withdrew it to pay his workers. Taking out over $1 million in cash alone was a bit scary, so I took Anthony with me. I remember that after the bank counted the cash, it was Anthony who carried it. The date on the promissory note was that day, even if he survived the apocalypse. With such a complete chain of evidence, no judge would side with him. After recording enough of Anthony's attempts to deny the debt, I hung up and went out to eat. I cherished these last quiet days before the end, enjoying my favorite Sichuan cuisine and buying a large bunch of flowers before strolling back home. Meanwhile, Anthony kept calling and sending angry messages, which I neither blocked nor responded to, before the apocalypse, his attention consumed by anger. He wouldn't notice that I had thrown away all the thick blankets and clothes in the rental apartment. Quite good. On the last day of the countdown to the apocalypse, I checked the air vents of the bomb shelter one last time and secured the doors and windows. To prevent the water pipes from freezing, I turned off the water valve and drained the water from the pipes after taking a shower. Only then did I bring the quilts that had been drying for several days into the bomb shelter. I've made the bed for myself and arranged Coco's little corner. Tonight, I'll be sleeping here. The long air raid shelter, dark as a serpentine void with the lights off, is somewhat frightening when I'm in it alone, so I set up a wooden partition to visually block out the seemingly endless darkness. After a shower, I lay in bed watching shows on my phone. A call came through from Allison on my phone. I didn't pick up. Instead, I opened the surveillance app on my iPad. Sure enough, Allison was there, but the sweet atmosphere they once had was gone. Anthony was frantic, while Allison kept redialing her phone over and over. Finally, she threw her phone down and cursed. I never realized she was so manipulative, all these years, and I never saw through her. Then she turned her anger on Anthony. "How could you be so foolish, just doing whatever she tells you to do? Are you a pig?" Anthony exploded. "You always said she was easy to deceive and naive. How else was I supposed to trust her? So you're blaming me now?" Allison's face dropped. "Is what she said true? Then, did you borrow the money from her?" Anthony yelled back. "How could that be possible? What about the IOU? How should I know?" I fell asleep amidst their bickering, ironically, without them realizing that my belongings were gone. When I woke up, it was already 3 in the morning. I reached out from under the covers to feel the temperature. It had indeed gotten a lot colder. I put on a thick, long cotton robe and stepped out of the shelter. As soon as I left, the cold made me shiver. I ran down to the first floor, which felt even colder than the basement. Despite wrapping myself tightly in the cotton robe, I shivered uncontrollably. With trembling hands, I drew open the curtains. Outside, the world was blindingly white. Large clumps of snow fell like giant cotton balls. The expected post-apocalyptic cold had arrived. The electricity was still on. I went back into the shelter, swapped my silk quilt for a down comforter, and added another blanket on top. Wrapped snugly in the textiles, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Picking up my iPad, I saw in the surveillance feed that Anthony and Allison had wrapped themselves tightly in all their clothes in a thin summer blanket, huddled together on the sofa. The heating was on, but Allison was still shivering, her voice quivering as she asked, "How can there be no thick blankets? How did this happen?" Anthony shook his head, shivering. "I don't know. Alyssa always took care of these things." He paused abruptly. "Wait, it seems like Alyssa's things are gone." Finally, they noticed, half lying in bed. I couldn't help but laugh out loud as I watched the iPad. They would soon find out that not only were the blankets and warm clothes gone, but so was the food. When I left, I had cleared out and discarded all the food, leaving only beverages. Anthony and Allison never cooked, they always ordered out, so they wouldn't even realize that there was not a single grain of rice left at home. I just prayed that in such cold weather, someone would still deliver their takeout. As I was enjoying this moment, my phone started ringing frantically. It was Anthony. I answered the call. "Alyssa, you," whether he was too angry or something else, Anthony suddenly stopped. All I could hear were his heavy breaths through the phone. I remained silent, just waiting, savoring the thrill of the moment. It felt so refreshing. "Alyssa, what exactly do you want to do?" Anthony took a deep breath and asked in a slower tone. I responded indifferently. "What are you talking about? You said you were going back to sell the house, but you were lying to me, weren't you? You took all your things. You never planned to come back, did you?" His voice sharp with frustration. "Selling the house might not be a lie, but taking my things and not planning to see you again, that is true." I chuckled softly. "Anthony, you were actually hoping I wouldn't return, weren't you?" "What do you mean?" "Huh, if you cared about me even a little, you wouldn't have waited until today to notice that my things were gone," I said coldly. "Nor would you have forgotten that I told you I took a week of annual leave, and it's been more than a week. Yet you never asked why I didn't return." After that, I hung up the phone, set it to silent, and went to sleep. When I woke up again, it was already 10 in the morning. My phone was full of Anthony's furious messages. I just laughed and scrolled past them. I couldn't bear to block him. How could I not savor his frantic state after all the torment I suffered in my past life when I was frozen to death? I opened Instagram to an overwhelming flood of messages. A small number of people were delighted by the snowfall, but most were lamenting about not being able to go to work, puzzled by how it could suddenly become so cold in September and snow so heavily. This was a warm city, after all, but whether joyful or lamenting, nobody yet realized this was a disaster, probably because those who had frozen to death last night couldn't go online anymore. I put down the phone, got out of bed, and washed up before heading to the kitchen on the ground floor. Finding that the gas was still on, I started to cook. In such cold weather, of course, a hot bowl of noodles was the most comforting. The water boiled, noodles went in, and after 3 rounds of adding cold water, they were ready. I took out a large blue and white bowl, added a spoonful of lard, soy sauce, vinegar, sesame oil, and a pinch of salt, and then, as the finishing touch, a sprinkle of chopped garlic leaves. I lifted the noodles into the bowl, placed a poached egg on top, and poured the hot noodle soup over it. A steaming, fragrant bowl of noodles was ready. I carried the noodles to the bomb shelter, first fed Coco some cat food and warm milk, then turned on my iPad to browse the news while eating. The noodles were perfectly tender, the poached egg runny, complemented by the fresh and savory soup. I quickly finished the large bowl, feeling warm all over. After eating, I stretched lazily and went upstairs. While gas and electricity were still available, I decided to continue using them to address daily needs. After all, it was uncertain how long this cold spell would last, and the small amount of firewood I had hoarded should be conserved. Only then did I realize that the heavy snow had almost buried the windows. Peering through a crack, I could see large clumps of snow still falling fast and furious. I suddenly realized that if the snow kept up, my 2-story house would soon be buried. If it covered the air vents to the bomb shelter, I would be suffocated alive inside. And opened the door leading to the terrace on the 2nd floor. I couldn't reach the ventilation shaft on the mountain, but fortunately, there were 2 vents close to the terrace. I just needed to make sure these 2 vents remained clear to avoid suffocation. Before this, I had changed all the entrance doors to open inward and bought a ladder. When I opened the door, the snow on the terrace had piled up to my chin. Luckily, it hadn't turned into ice blocks and was still fluffy. I spent quite some time, huffing and puffing, shoveling all the snow into the yard. Seeing that the 2 vents were not blocked, I breathed a sigh of relief. Then I climbed up to the roof using the ladder, to prevent it from collapsing under the weight of the snow. I had spent a considerable amount of money to reinforce the roof with a steel frame. Even so, I couldn't just let the snow accumulate. With the roof being large and the temperature dropping to several degrees below zero, my whole body was nearly frozen stiff. My thick clothes and hat felt as thin as paper in the frigid air. I gritted my teeth and persevered, but the snow was just too much. Every time I turned around, the area I had just cleared was covered again up to my ankles. This made me a bit panicky. At this rate, by tomorrow afternoon, the second floor would be buried. Where would I then move the snow? I had never imagined, despite all my preparations, that I had failed to consider the house wasn't tall enough to withstand the onslaught of heavy snow, thinking that Anthony and Allison, possibly living on the 6th floor, might not have frozen to death yet. I was the one getting suffocated first, a lump of frustration stuck in my throat, after finally clearing the roof of snow. I tied 2 red ribbons to the vents to mark their positions in case the house got buried. This way, I could locate the vents through the snow using the ribbons. Having finished all this, I went back inside the house, surprised to find that both the electricity and gas were still running. I was genuinely happy for Anthony and Allison. The electricity hadn't cut off, and the air conditioning was still working, so they wouldn't freeze too quickly. The temperature inside the bomb shelter was significantly higher than outside. I took off my down jacket and hat, gloves, and changed into a loose and comfortable cotton outfit. Then, I thought about it and lit the fireplace. I could have endured the temperature in the bomb shelter, but seeing the fierce snow, I had to ensure the vents remained clear. The chimney from the fireplace extended through the vent and was bent to fix a meter away from it. The heat from the fireplace made the chimney very hot, melting the snow and preventing the vent from getting blocked. The dry wood in the fireplace burned briskly, and in no time, the bomb shelter became as warm as spring. I took off my cotton jacket, brewed a pot of tea on the fireplace, and sat in my thick coral fleece home clothes on the sofa in front of the fireplace, comfortably stretching myself. The tea was my favorite white tea, fragrant but not too bitter. I poured a cup to cool down and picked up my iPad to check the surveillance. On the sofa, Anthony's face was turning blue as he cursed. Alyssa, that wretch. Once the snow stops, I'm going to find her. I won't let her go. Allison shivered and cried, Husband, I'm hungry. Anthony didn't respond. Allison cried louder, Husband, I'm hungry, 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 hungry. Who isn't hungry? Anthony yelled. Damn it. What can I do if no one picks up the takeaway order? Why don't you have any food here? Allison started to get angry. Eat, eat, eat. That's all you know. Seeing their miserable state lightened my gloomy mood instantly. I put down the iPad and picked up my phone. I ignored the endless missed calls and abusive messages from Anthony. There were a few from Allison, just casual check-ins asking where I was. Oh, she's still putting on a show, pretending she isn't with Anthony. I glanced over them and didn't bother replying. After signing the contract for the apartment, I joined the resident group chat organized by the landlord to keep up with the COVID testing updates in the area. The chat was abuzz about the heavy snow. By now, no one cared about whether they could go to work or not. Everyone was just lamenting the cold and the lack of running water. It turned out the water had been cut off. No wonder it was so cold. Those 2 idiots hadn't even thought to use hot water to warm their feet. I sent a red envelope in the chat to catch everyone's attention and kindly reminded them that the weather was very unpredictable. I suggested they conserve their food, water, and warm clothing. Preparing for the worst, I advised them to secure their doors and windows, warning that if the snow continued and temperatures dropped further, people desperate for survival might do anything. Anthony and Allison wouldn't just sit back and wait to be rescued when they couldn't bear it any longer. They would definitely seek help from neighbors, and I intended to cut off their avenues for assistance. Honestly, these precautions were probably unnecessary. I remember the day I nearly froze to death, how I had knocked on neighbors' doors begging for a thick coat or even just for someone to call for help, but no one opened their doors. However, I don't hold a grudge against them. In times of great distress, everyone must fend for themselves. I owe them nothing. It's Anthony and Allison I truly despise. After preparing the neighbors with these preventive measures, I opened Allison's chat and replied, I'm at home, what about you? On my iPad's surveillance feed, Allison looked dazed from the cold. It was Anthony who noticed my message and quickly handed her the phone, saying, Quick, Alyssa, that bitch, has replied. Allison, with a sobbing tone, responded, So what if she replied? Can she send us food or clothes or blankets? Well, she's not that foolish. Anthony slapped her. Are you stupid? Ask her for her address quickly, so we can go to her place to repay her once the snow stops. Allison took the phone, her fingers clearly numb from the cold, and after a long while, I still hadn't received a message. I turned off the lights, took a photo by the fireplace, showing only the warm fire, my tea, and a few snacks in front of me in the dark background. I sent the photo to Allison with a lazy tone in my voice message. Who would have thought it would snow like this? I'm lucky to have a fireplace, otherwise, I'd freeze to death. Allison's expression and movement stiffened instantly, and then she gritted her teeth. She's actually enjoying a fire. She has food. How can she be so comfortable? Why does she deserve this? Clearly agitated, Anthony urged Allison to ask for my address, but instead, she called me, and I hung up. I texted her back. saying I was hungry and going to cook, frustrated. Anthony snatched the phone and kept calling me, but I set my phone to do not disturb and tossed it aside, going to make myself something to eat. Having exerted a lot of energy shoveling snow in the morning, I planned to have a hearty lunch. I washed the thawed chicken, chopped it, and blanched it, then I cleaned the potatoes and beans, heated the pan on high, and added oil. Once the oil was smoking, I tossed in the potatoes and long beans, stir-frying them until nearly done, then set them aside. Next, I added the chicken pieces to the pot along with scallions, ginger, bay leaves, and star anise, stir-frying them together. I poured in cooking wine, light soy sauce, dark soy sauce, and vinegar, then added water and brought it to a boil before moving the pot into the air raid shelter. Today, I was using a dual-purpose fireplace for both heating and cooking. I placed the pot on the stove and let it simmer slowly. If it weren't for the significant smoke, I would have done all the previous steps there as well. This was a hearty chicken stew, my late father's favorite, brimming with both meat and vegetables, fragrant and steaming hot, perfect with rice. In the rice cooker, I had steamed some rice using premium rice, which emitted a tantalizing aroma. Normally, I wouldn't splurge on such high-quality rice, but in these apocalyptic times, who knows how long I have left, I decided to treat myself well. About half an hour later, I checked the chicken with chopsticks and seeing it was tender, I added the previously stir-fried potatoes and long beans back into the pot. Stir-frying the potatoes first was meant to prevent them from becoming too mushy during the stewing, a trick taught by my father. After another 10 minutes, once the potatoes and beans were well flavored, I brought the pot to the table and stir-fried some greens before starting my meal. However, being a kind-hearted person, now that I had my food and drink, how could I forget about Anthony and Allison? Naturally, I had to show them the delicious chicken stew by sending them a picture. I grabbed my phone and snapped away, particularly proud of the photo showing the glossy, soy sauce glazed chicken drumstick placed on the clearly visible grains of rice, accompanied by a few vibrant greens. Even through the screen, you could almost smell it. I generously sent the photos to Allison. If they couldn't eat it, at least they could look. On the monitor, Allison picked up her phone and immediately burst into tears upon seeing the photos. She started hitting Anthony, crying out, "I'm starving, and you still haven't figured out what to do. Why would she send me this?" Anthony wondered aloud, confused and frustrated. Anthony was busy calling the police for help. "Officer, we don't have food or warm clothes. We're freezing to death. Please come save us." Whatever was said on the other end only made Anthony furrow his brow more deeply. I couldn't help but snicker, knowing all too well that the police were powerless to help. With the snow piled high, did they expect the police to fly over? Did they really think they were superheroes? Anthony hung up the phone with a pale, furious face, and Allison, calling me names, showed him the photo on her phone, her face contorted in anger. "What does she mean by this?" Anthony looked at the phone, his expression dark and filled with resentment. In the evening, I went up to the second-floor terrace to check the vent. The heavy snow continued, and the red ribbon on the vent fluttered wildly in the wind. The chimney of the fireplace emitted steam as the snowflakes met the warm chimney and evaporated. The snow had piled up to the second-floor windows, and I did my best to shovel it off to clear the terrace. Fortunately, I had extended the vent with a long stainless steel pipe, which should keep it from being buried for at least 2 days, but the temperature had dropped even further, and my phone shut down from the cold as soon as I stepped outside. Shivering, I hurried back to the warmth of the shelter, where I thawed out by the fire. Then I noticed that the surveillance feed from Anthony and Allison's place was down. A chorus of lamentations rose from the apartment complex as the power went out. Without electricity, there was no air conditioning. And for Anthony and Allison, who lacked warm clothes and blankets, it would be a devastating hell. I should have been pleased, but at that moment, despite the overwhelming messages on my phone about people seeking help and crying, many were tragic news about how many had perished in the snow disaster. Seeing almost all military units, police officers, party members, civil servants, and many volunteers engaged in snow clearing and rescue operations, I couldn't bring myself to feel happy. Countless power workers braved the life-threatening, sub-zero temperatures to reach the fault locations. They risked their lives climbing up the cold, hard, and slippery poles to repair the power lines broken by the heavy snow. Just in one short day, there were already messages about several workers either missing or dead. This made my nose tingle with sadness. After enduring manipulations that still send shivers down my spine when recalled, I thought my heart had turned to iron. Yet, seeing these heroes sacrificing their lives for the disaster relief, I couldn't help but cry uncontrollably. I realized I was still narrow-minded. The world has its villains who engage in dangerous scheming, but it also has heroes who sacrifice their lives for the benefit of the people. After crying, I suddenly lost interest in the fates of Anthony and Allison, compared to the heroes fighting against the snow disaster. Those two were insignificant like maggots. I searched for nearby volunteer groups and applied to join, perhaps feeling a renewed sense of vigor. I slept soundly that night, dreamless. When I woke up, it was 7 in the morning. The fire in the fireplace had gone out, but the temperature in the bomb shelter was still bearable. Remembering the previous day's agreement in the volunteer group, I quickly got up, washed with the water from the thermos, and went to the kitchen on the first floor to check, finding that the gas was still working. I cooked myself a bowl of dumplings. They were filled with fennel and beef, my favorite. After devouring a large bowl of dumplings, soup and all, I rested a while with my bulging stomach. Then I put on my down jacket, hat, and gloves, and went out to work. The snow had fallen heavily again overnight, nearly covering the second floor windows. I started by shoveling the snow off the balcony and roof, then began clearing the yard, according to the volunteers' agreement. Everyone first tried to clear the pathways from their doorsteps outward, then gradually worked their way outward. As long as there was a path, rescues could be carried out, but as a girl, I lacked the strength. After clearing the balcony and roof, I spent half the day in the yard and only managed to dig a half-meter deep hole in the snow. I gave up, realizing that with my strength, I could never reach the gate even if I dug till death. Disheartened, I returned to the bomb shelter and checked my phone. The others in the group were also disheartened, all agreeing that our method wasn't working. The snow was simply too deep, mountainous even. Individual tools were no match for it. We were curious how the power workers and military police managed to leave their houses. After some searching, we found out some used wooden planks on the snow, others strapped wide wooden strips to their feet, mimicking sleds, and some purely relied on brute force to dig. While we sighed in awe, we were also glad to find wooden planks, but all I had at home was firewood, each piece neatly split by the firewood seller, no substitute for planks. I tried tying the firewood into a small raft-like arrangement and strapping it to my shoes, but as soon as I stepped on the snow, I sank. Buried completely by the snow, panicking and afraid, I flailed my limbs. Fortunately, the snow wasn't compact, and after struggling, I managed to clear the snow above my head to breathe. Luckily, I had tied a rope around my waist before going out. With the other end tied to the balcony railing, I pulled myself desperately to the edge of the balcony and then untied the makeshift raft of firewood, climbing up the ladder. This method also proved futile. I climbed onto the roof. I looked around. The houses in the neighborhood were spaced 20 meters apart. In the thick snow, only the roofs were visible, appearing like gray lids covering each building. I shouted at the top of my lungs, "Hello, is anyone there?" After a long pause, no one replied. A sinking feeling gripped my heart. Could it be that they hadn't survived the freezing temperatures, that they had frozen to death? No, that couldn't be it. We still had electricity. They could use their air conditioning or wrap themselves in thick clothes and blankets. They wouldn't have frozen to death so quickly. I called out a few more times until finally, a voice came through. "Yes, there's someone." Overjoyed, I followed the voice and saw Uncle Archer's house window cracked open a bit. Uncle Archer called out, "Is that Alyssa? Do you need something?" Taking a deep breath, I yelled back, "Uncle Archer, are you okay?" "I'm all right." Uncle Archer responded, "It's so cold. Why are you on the roof? Get back inside and be safe." His concern, which had been absent for so long, made my nose tingle with emotion. Uncle Archer and I weren't usually close. In fact, he could be quite stern. Once, my mom's dog secretly ran out and defecated at his doorstep, and he came to our door to scold us for an entire afternoon. Rubbing my nose to hold back the tears, I managed to smile. "I'm glad you're okay." "I was just checking in," he suddenly sighed. "I'm fine. But your aunt has a fever, and we've run out of medicine." "A fever?" I was instantly alarmed. In this weather, a fever without medicine could be deadly. Luckily, I had some medicine, but then I was stumped. I had medicine, but how could I get it to him? I voiced this thought out loud, and initially, Uncle Archer was excited, then fell silent. We stared at each other across the distance, just as I was getting anxious. An idea struck me. I told Uncle Archer to hold on, rushed back to the bunker, grabbed all sorts of medicines, useful or not, packed them tightly in a bag, and then I fetched my crossbow and returned to the rooftop. I tied the bag to an arrow, saw that Uncle Archer had opened his window, and pulled the trigger. The arrow, with the medicine bag attached, flew straight into Uncle Archer's balcony. Uncle Archer, overwhelmed with joy, cried out, "Alyssa, you literally saved your aunt's life." It was too cold outside. Standing in the blizzard, I was so frozen I could hardly speak. I waved at him and quickly rushed back to the bunker. I added a few logs to the fireplace and shivered as I sat in front of the fire to warm up. Once I had thawed a bit, I took off my thick clothes. Just as I was about to pour myself a cup of water, everything went dark except for the light from the fireplace. The power had gone out. I sighed, resigned to the situation. With no electricity, I wondered whether Uncle Archer and Aunt could make it through. I turned on a rechargeable emergency light. I glanced at my phone and realized it was already past 2 in the afternoon. Like a switch, this realization suddenly triggered my hunger, and my stomach began to growl uncontrollably. At that point, I wasn't in the mood to fuss over cooking, so I opted for the usual dumplings. This time, ones filled with chive and pork. I boiled 15 of them and gobbled them all down while they were still piping hot. After eating, I felt thoroughly warmed up and began to check the messages on my phone. Thankfully, the network signal was still available, probably because there's a signal tower on Mount. I was getting decent reception even inside the air raid shelter. As usual, there were many angry messages, including some from Anthony and, surprisingly, from Allison as well. Well, it seems they're not holding back anymore. Despite the power outage, they were still using their phone battery to curse at me. Talk about true love. I scrolled past their messages and opened the volunteer group chat. The folks in the group were still discussing how to forge a life-saving path through the snow, but reality was proving too tough, and nobody had any better ideas. As the conversation went on, some people stopped replying, probably because their phones had died. Eventually, I suggested that we should give up and focus on keeping ourselves safe while waiting for government rescue. Facing the forces of nature, we were weak and isolated. It would be foolish to just throw our lives away. Everyone went silent. Then, a girl sent a voice message tinged with sobs. When will this snow stop? No one answered her, because no one knew. To save battery, I turned off the emergency light and sat in front of the fireplace, reading by the glow of the fire. The firelight, though not as bright as a lamp, was sufficient. I was sitting comfortably on a thick carpet, with a cushion beneath me, a small blanket over my legs, and the sofa at my back. I didn't read much of the book, stretching lazily instead, and eventually, I tossed the book aside and fell asleep. I woke up freezing. Opening my eyes, I saw that the fire in the fireplace was nearly out. I quickly threw in some more wood. Feeling thirsty, I drank some tea, and after bustling about, I checked my phone and saw it was already 9 in the evening. I continued to prepare something to eat but was feeling lazy. So I heated up the leftover chicken stew and rice from the previous night on the fireplace and ate a few bites. As I was eating, the bedside lamp suddenly lit up. The power was back on. I sprang up with a shout, turned on the main lights, and checked social media. The feed was filled with cheers as electricity had been restored in many areas. Amidst the celebration, someone commented somberly, "Who knows what the cost of this electricity is?" This comment quickly rose to the top of the trending list, with everyone feeling a mix of relief and concern, praying for the safety of those still struggling against the blizzard and cold. Soon, another trending update appeared, a government announcement stating that the heavy snow was subsiding and that planes would be used to drop salt to help clear the snow, advising residents to stay indoors until further notice. The announcement sparked widespread rejoicing. The snow was stopping, the salt would help the snow melt quickly, and rescue operations would be underway soon. A surge of warmth bubbled up in my chest, tears finally surged up to my eyes, and with trembling hands, I set down my phone and burst into tears. I cried for the loneliness of being orphaned, for the betrayal in love and friendship that schemed against my life, for my tragic death in my past life, and for the cold, selfish hearts that offered no help as I was dying. Yet, I also wept because there is still sunlight and hope in this world, which pulled me from the abyss of endless misery and resentment. I still despise Anthony and Allison, and I am not ready to forgive those who have hurt and humiliated me, but now I have the strength to face a new life. That night, I only fell asleep as dawn was approaching, and when I woke up, it was already 3 in the afternoon. I put on a thick down jacket and went out to the terrace. The snow had lessened, falling in smaller, scattered flakes, which pleased me. Going into the kitchen, I found that the gas was shut off. A tightness gripped my heart. Without gas, I wondered how Uncle Archer and the others would manage their meals. I thought about asking, but realizing I couldn't help, I let it be. Fortunately, we still had electricity. Returning to the bunker, I carried the large tea kettle from the fireplace to the well to wash up. The well water wasn't frozen, but the drain pipes seemed to be, and when I saw the water wouldn't go down, I simply dumped the used water into a bucket. After washing up, I carried the bucket to the second-floor terrace and poured it out. It was dirty, but in times like these, one can't be too concerned with cleanliness. Feeling good, I decided to cook something delicious. I took out some semi-prepared meat, lit the charcoal brazier, set up the grill, turned on the smoke extractor, and began grilling the meat. The slices of meat quickly sizzled and popped with grease. I added mushrooms to soak up the oil. Then, I took out my phone, added Allison and Anthony to a small group, and sent them a photo of the sizzling meat. I sent them a voice message with a laugh. "Want some?" There was no reply. I didn't know if their phones had died or if they had frozen to death. I hoped it was the latter. It had been 2 or 3 days since the blizzard started, with no food, no drink, no warm clothes, and no electricity. I wondered how they were managing. It really was a worry. I picked up a piece of grilled meat, dipped it in the seasoned sauce, and took a bite. The meat was tender, juicy, and deliciously flavorful, almost making me wish I could swallow my tongue. I had only eaten 2 slices when suddenly my phone rang. Hey, it was Allison, feeling good. I generously hit the answer button and turned on the speaker. As soon as the call connected, a weak roar came from the other end. "Alyssa, what do you mean by this?" As I flipped the food on the grill, I replied leisurely, "I don't mean anything really, just showing you the meat I'm grilling. Doesn't it look good?" She was panting heavily, but it didn't stop me from sensing her grinding teeth. "Alyssa, where are you?" "I'm at home." "What I mean is, where is your home?" I put down my chopsticks, sounding surprised. "Why, are you planning to come over? With all this snow, you won't make it, right?" She continued panting heavily and suddenly asked, "Do you know everything?" "What do I know?" She couldn't continue. I laughed out loud. "I don't know anything. I just know that my barbecue today was especially delicious." After that, I hung up the phone. The truth is, I didn't have much left to say to them. The only reason I still entertained them was to bring some joy to my dull and lonely life. She called again, but I didn't answer. Instead, she kept sending me voice messages, apologies, emotional pleas, begging me to save her. I figured she must have been delirious from hunger and cold, not that I could save her even if I wanted to, even if I were moved to help. It just wasn't feasible, I replied, instead of begging me. "You should think about how to save yourself. Besides, aren't you and Anthony truly in love? Even if you die together, you'd die happy, right?" That made my stance clear. Allison immediately became agitated and bombarded me with more voice messages. I patiently listened to a couple but didn't bother with the rest. Then, Anthony also started calling and texting me, but all I cared about was delicious food. Still, having known them, I felt I shouldn't be too heartless, so I took pictures of the grilled mushrooms and shrimp I had prepared and sent them to them. Just as the sight of plums quenches thirst, the sight of food can relieve hunger, right? Man, I'm just too kind. The next day, the snow finally stopped, but it was even colder. I opened the patio door, poked my head out to check the air vent, saw it was clear, and then shut the door and went back inside my shelter. As long as it stopped snowing, I had nothing to fear. For the next few days, I stayed in my shelter, binge-watching shows, browsing my phone, playing games, reading books, warming myself by the fire, chatting with people, daydreaming. I stopped paying attention to Anthony and Allison's situation. There are so many beautiful things in the world. I shouldn't always focus on the trash. I checked the news occasionally, keeping up with the situation outside. Snow clearing operations were in full swing, but because the snow was so heavy and thick, they could only prioritize important areas. Residential areas had to rely on themselves, but it was just too cold. According to official reports, outdoor temperatures had dropped to below -80 degrees Celsius. Not only could people not go outside, even military operations had stalled. Even in China's coldest village, Cold Pole Village, the lowest temperature is only -58 degrees. We're all flesh and blood, born of parents who could endure such low temperatures. But while I was ignoring Anthony and Allison, they still tried to contact me. Anthony sent me a selfie wrapped in a soy sauce-stained blanket, smugly saying, "Bitch, did you think you could freeze me to death by taking all the thick blankets?" Allison sent a photo of herself wrapped in a men's jacket eating instant noodles, equally smug. "Did you think I had nothing to eat?" Disappointed. Wow, where did all this food and clothing come from? But then I recognized the clothes Allison was wearing and the background of her photo. It was an old bachelor's place downstairs. I had seen him wearing that jacket, and the place she was in was the old man's home. That old bachelor had creepy eyes and had been reported more than once for sexual harassment. He was also not clean-handed, always taking advantage of others. If anyone left something outside, it would end up in his hands in the blink of an eye. I had also been to his house once to retrieve a package he had taken. Can you believe someone was willing to give Allison something to eat when supplies were so scarce? Without thinking, I knew what Allison had sacrificed. I didn't say much, just kindly sent her a photo of grilled sorry to accompany her meal and casually wished her happiness with that old bachelor. Then, I posted Allison's photo in the building group chat and tagged the old bachelor, congratulating him on bagging a bride with just a packet of instant noodles. The group chat erupted. Some despised him. Others joked. Most were amazed at the old bachelor's generosity. With no end to the disaster in sight and uncertain government relief, he had still shared his precious food. Others even proposed trading with the old bachelor for food. Eventually, the old bachelor came forward, probably realizing something, and cursed me out, accusing me of violating his privacy. I was innocent. The photo was sent to me by Allison herself. I was just happy for her. Was that wrong? Those who wanted to trade with him were unhappy, arguing that neighbors should help each other. They were offended that he gave food away freely but wouldn't help them, clearly looking down on them. Some even accused him of wanting to see them starve. Faced with the neighbors' anger, the old bachelor panicked and hastily explained it was just one packet of noodles he gave Allison because she looked pitiful, and she left after eating. I casually mentioned that Allison had no food at home and she and her boyfriend could only survive by seeking help from their neighbors, hoping the men in the building would learn from the old bachelor and help her. This sparked outrage among the female homeowners who declared that if their men dared to give food to that wretched woman, they would chop them up. I closed the chat box satisfied and focused on enjoying my grilled fish. This incident would definitely make the old bachelor consider two things. At a time like this, what's more important, women or food? And if the neighbors knew he had extra food, what would his fate be? He wasn't foolish, he would choose self-preservation, and Allison would now be a thorn in the side of the female homeowners, who would keep a close watch on their men, ensuring they didn't give her a single grain of rice. Allison, Anthony, if you can still survive under these circumstances, I'll truly be impressed. The cold persisted, and 2 days later, heavy snow began to fall again. This made me nervous. If it continued like before, my vent would soon be buried. Shoveling snow, power outages, keeping an eye on the weather, and the news, all my attention was focused on these 4 things. It was 10 days later when I heard news of Allison and Anthony again. They both had died, Allison from cold and hunger, and Anthony while attempting to break into a neighbor's home to loot supplies. Was killed. The photo was posted in the group, and I stared at it for a long time. Some said they had seen male neighbors secretly giving Allison some food. Why did she still die? Anthony seemed to be in better spirits. Could it be that Allison, deeply in love with Anthony, gave all the food she got to him? I scoffed. I knew them too well. Both were selfish and vicious by nature. Neither would sacrifice for the other. So there was only one truth. Anthony had taken all of Allison's food. As I laughed, I suddenly realized I was crying without knowing why. Perhaps it was for the sincere love I gave without reservation, only to be betrayed. The sudden cold spell of autumn 2022, no one remembers how long it lasted. After the heavy snow finally stopped, electricity was the first to be restored, followed by the gas supply. Due to the extreme cold, the water supply remained off to prevent the pipes from freezing and causing unnecessary accidents and losses. Officials advised everyone to use melted snow for their water needs temporarily. As for other needs, such as the disposal of garbage and waste, people were initially left to manage these issues on their own. The most critical shortages were food and medicine, and the government did everything possible to provide support. Under the extreme weather conditions, people's reactions were polarized. Some resorted to violence for a morsel of food, while others sacrificed their own lives to ensure the vulnerable could eat. However, almost everyone remained calm. The snow had stopped, and although the temperatures were still low and the snow piled up like mountains, the belief prevailed that, as the old proverb goes, even fools can move mountains. With thousands of people united, these difficulties would eventually be overcome. I sat in front of the fireplace, frying small yellow fish on the stove and humming a tune, confidently waiting for the day when all would be well again.